Welcome to another episode of Dangle Thoughts. This time I'm talking to Lukas Neufeld. Lukas is one of the most extraordinary performers I personally know. He's an amazing guitar player and a singer. He's part of a band called The Things. And I wanted to talk to him because he's one of the most capacious minds I personally had the pleasure of meeting. He knows a lot about physics, electrical engineering, and of course, sound. He also speaks Japanese, which was also fun to explore. We get into very deep discussions about some fun things. I think this is one of the last intros that I'm going to be doing. I'm not sure how much it actually contributes to the episodes, and I think the episodes speak for themselves, so I'm going to keep the next few very short, and unless you guys tell me otherwise, I will stop doing them altogether. Just to take this opportunity to quickly remind you that if you like what I do, please like and subscribe, and if you really like what I do, please consider contributing a Patreon. The link is in the description. And now, I give you my conversation with Lukas Neufeld.
Yeah, it sounds good, man. This is
cool. Oh man, this
sounds good.
Okay, that's what I needed.
Yeah, these are good mics. I like them.
Lucas,
hello.
How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy we get to do this, man.
Yeah,
I was excited to talk to you for a long time.
Yeah, it's
nice and I needed a podcast as an excuse because otherwise,
we don't talk about.
We don't. Talk.
Only if it's a big project.
How was your drive here, by the way? It was pretty rainy.
It was good. Yeah, I don't drive often, and my license has just been revoked, so it was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll fix it.
Shit. yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Don't tell her.
So, to anybody who doesn't know, you are a musician extraordinaire, and you really are truly one of my favorite musicians. Like, I know a lot of musicians somehow. I don't even know how because I'm not one. Yeah. But you literally one of those people that it's so annoying when people say, the X factor. Uh-huh. But you definitely have, like, there's something Thanks, like, there's something about your presence. So I think it's about presence. I think it's about the fact that aside from the looks and the actual ability to deliver on stage, there's like a playfulness that is fun. Like, you actually are there very clearly, not just to be seen, but well, actually, I don't know if that's true, but it seems from the audience that, like, you really care about what the audience is experiencing.
For sure.
Would that be an accurate assessment of the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I was a sound guy for a long time, so doing sound, you see a lot of artists. Like, I probably mixed like 3,000 bands, and it got to a point where 90% of the people you see, there's something missing, and then there's like that 10% of people, maybe even less, like Diamond or like Jules, or there's certain people that I was always drawn to, Oscar, like, that had this thing where, I guess the best way to put it is when you're on stage, people reflect what you're doing. So, like, if someone's on stage, let's say I'm on stage and I go, I'm cool. Like, I'm thinking this in my head, like, I'm cool. Look at me. I have a guitar. And then the audience is looking at you, and you're setting the example as the leader of the room. And then, so the audience feels, I'm cool. Look at me. And they're so confused. They're like, why am I feel so weird? And they're trying to relate with you, but all you're doing is I'm cool. And they're feeling I'm cool. So, like, what you do exactly reflects to people. So I think a lot of people miss that point. And for me, it's more about, like, losing myself in the music. And when I can do it in front of people, then maybe people can get lost with me, and it's a really fun experience when it happens in that way.
How do you go from? Could you always remove your ego like this, or was it a gradual process?
Oh, remove ego? Well,
because it seems maybe I'm misinterpreting the situation, but it seems to me that you have to, like, in order to be in that state in which you're just enjoying what you're doing and not think for a second what the audience thinks. It seems like you must have some degree of removing your ego, no?
Well, I guess it's for me. It started
like, you don't think about how you look. That means removing your ego, kind of. No,
I guess the way it works is it's in a certain order of operations. Like, if I prepare, then when I'm on stage, I know they're gonna like it, so now I can stop worrying about it. Like, because I've done the work, I've built my pedal board, I've got my tones, I've worked on the songs enough, and I trust the people around me that the work's done. So now I don't have to worry about it in front of people. I can just be. Like, but I do know that, like, a long time ago, I used to get into magic. Like, I would learn magic tricks, or like me and Skylar my friend Skylar, Skylar, for the audience. But,
everybody like, oh, Skylar.
Oh, Skylar, yeah. So we used to ride unicycles, and like we'd ride to school on our unicycles, and like we always got into these things that were like these little projects we get into. And for me, a lot of it was like I loved to impress people. Like I loved to like blow people's minds, like with a magic trick or something. It was just so satisfying to see people's reactions. So it comes from that in a way. And it also, for me, there's a feeling like when I was little, I wanted to be Spider-Man, like really bad. Like, and it's not possible. I don't live in New York, first of all, there's that. But also, you can't be a superhero.
Wait, so LA can't have a Spider-Man? It's too thin. It's too low.
I mean, you could, but he would just walk around like just jizzing on people with his hands. And he would just,
it just go between 7-Elevens, you basically, and Starbucks.
It's not conducive to a web slinger. But so I always wanted to be a superhero when I was little. And I was like, oh, what am I like? So the closest thing to that is like a rock star, I guess. So I guess I started kind of leaning into that, and then it turned into something else as I was trying to impress a girl with that path. And then it just pulled me all the way into it. It became something much more. But like to be like a superhero, like to be on stage and to move people it just feels like when it's happening, and every time I play a show, it's like I feel like I live for it. I'm like, why am I not doing this every single day? Because it's such a powerful state of being that feels like a superpower. So, and it's not so much about like, back to the ego thing. It's not so much about the ego of like, oh, me in the situation, but to move people and to feel that motion is what it's about. Like that's why the album's called Vicarious Catharsis, because it's.
Oh yeah, your recent album is Vicarious Catharsis.
Yeah,
the link is going to be in the description
for sure. Yeah, well, I'm working on some new songs, but that album is called that because
it's big words and you want to sound smart.
Yes,
but also.
So that actually came from Justice, bass player in the band. Justice was up on a mountain with the Dalai Lama or something. And I swear to God, he calls me. He's like, I'm with the Dalai Lama. And I'm like,
this is such a Justice story.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
of course you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's like, so I guess I got to ask you, like, why are we doing this? And I was like, he's like, really? Like, is it for people to look at us on stage and be cool? I was like, yeah, I guess it's a really good question. Took me a second, but what it came down to was vicarious catharsis. This act of playing the music on stage is this like the most cathartic thing possible for me. And then when you're doing something on stage, what I learned from sound, like I said, it's everything you do becomes vicarious. So the act should be a vicarious catharsis.
So it's interesting because essentially the release that you experience in that moment, that catharsis is something that is carried through the way you play the music, and the audience feels it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, at least some of them do, and when they do, you can feel it. And when they don't, it's pretty fun to like look out and just like stare at them, and they're like, then all of a sudden they're like uncomfortable. It shifts their frame of reference, and their state is shifted, and then they're with you.
So you really it's always a very common theme with you where you actually, you know what? Can you move that book away? I feel like it's just enough. Yeah, just over there somewhere. It's such a common thing with you where you trying to always not like you're a very analytical person, but when you asked about your craft, you always downgrade it. Well, maybe downgrade is the wrong word, but you essentially you bring it to the vibe level, which is not so much about like I don't know what carries what. All I know is what I see, and all I know is what I feel on stage, and that's all I can talk about with certainty, which is also part of your charm, because it's not something that because it gets to a lot of people's heads, right? A lot of performers, like, it gets to their head, and I mean maybe it's justified to some degree, but there's something unique about somebody who can really deliver, but also at the same time it really is not for them about anything else but their own experience, essentially.
Yeah.
But which is interesting because for anybody who knows you, you're very analytical, like in some ways, right? You're very smart. You know how to build things.
I think of it like I'm a spaceship builder. I'm building my spaceship for the show, which is like the journey, and then so like that's why building the Studio of Justice. It was like I love building the spaceship. Like my pedal board or something, or the songs for the show. It's like once it's built, then we fly and.
So your preparation, you're preparing the equipment and the sound, checking the electricity, pedals, everything. including your own prep with the music.
Yeah.
That's building the spaceship.
Yeah.
And then we fly.
And then we fly, and
That's amazing.
And I don't think about myself as the pilot, but I do really enjoy. Like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Do you feel you're the navigator, maybe?
Maybe, I don't know. It's interesting. It depends on the scenario. I guess with the thing stuff, it's like, I don't know. I just love to fly the ship. It kind of feels like a video game in a way, and like I'm building the character that is gonna do this journey on stage, and that's what excites me more than anything else. I think is the building of it and the writing of the songs for it, and then setting up and putting on these like ridiculous outfits, because it's like people look at you like, how, if you can tune everything to be like, what the hell is that guy wearing, and like what, like, and people just can't take their eyes off you. And it's funny because every time I put that amount of effort into each piece, like the clothes, and then I'll work on my vocals, or I'll like work on my guitar playing. If I've put enough work into all those pieces, and then when they come together on stage, I always get a reaction every time. It never becomes like, oh, they like me. It's always like, cool. Okay, I'll work on that more. Okay, cool. I like that. This felt good tonight. So that this is getting at the level, and you have all these like character traits and like effect traits and like different parts of the music that once you level them all up, they align up really nicely. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. It definitely shows. But you know what I was thinking? That would actually be a really cool way of just approaching life in general. Like, I mean, certain jobs like yours, I don't even know if you can call it a job, but like certain journeys like yours lend themselves easier for this kind of play inside your own head, in which you imagine yourself to be this character, and what kind of character would actually carry the story better.
Yeah.
That's a really fun game. And I think that on some level we can all play it, even if you're a fucking accountant, or I don't know why it's a fucking accountant, but even if you're an accountant or whatever it is that you do, it doesn't matter what it is. I feel like making it into a game, because to a certain degree it is a game.
It totally
like
is.
It's just the infinite game. Like, you know, in video games you're just limited by the rules that the video game makers put in place, which is like, you know, the type of coin you can collect, or whatever kind of powers you can get. But this is like the ultimate game, in which, hey, the laws of physics are here, but then,
and you have these spiders taped to your limbs.
Yeah,
so you can use them.
And then that's it. Like, go.
Yeah.
That I think really, who was talking about that? Oh, I think it was some Sam Harris episode in which he was talking about how, like, he was also talking about it like a video game. He's like, just look at Elon. It's like, nobody's ever done it before. There's no rule against it, so
yeah, well,
you can make it happen.
Once you decide the game you're playing, like, that's the hardest part, is to decide what game you want to play. I feel like once you do something and you find something you really like, then you can trust yourself to do it. But up until the point at which you've chosen, you can't fully play. Like, and so that's why if you're half into something, like, let's say you're an accountant and you love this stuff. You love being an accountant. So you get your cool desk that you like and your cool things set up, and you have all your systems, and you're always working on your systems as well as the thing. Like, I guess it started as well for me with the pedals specifically, being like, I need to trick myself into like, I play music, but it's like, yeah, I do other stuff too. But if I all the other stuff I do is the music also, like wiring and fixing things and this, then I'm always doing the music. And then it turned into, oh, now I'm always working on this one mission. And so I fill up all of my time with different pieces of the same mission. So like the sounds, or the room, the space you play in, the people you play with. And it's these things, like, you're working on them in the off time, but it actually becomes on time because it's still working on the same thing, you know? So,
I think that's the difference between a career and a job.
Yes.
So I think that everybody with a career, that's their life, because pretty much every facet of their life has something to do with what they do. There's a certain element of constant development of certain skills that you always got to learn because something is developing, or certain tools you got to learn, or really just like networking, whatever it is, right? But with a job, it's almost like somebody else's idea. And then you just kind of, like, until you figure it out, you just kind of like living somebody else's idea.
Yeah.
And
that's the initial escape too. It's like the first mission, I feel like. Which
what is?
is the escape of supposed tos and shoulds.
I
Because
see.
our parents raise us and they're protecting us. They're raising us to this place because this is the way they see the world, and whoever they are and whatever your circumstances, they instill something into you that you now need to shake loose as the first step to figure out what your mission is. And
So that's the first force of gravity, would you say? To go into kind of like the first orbit?
yeah, you first need to build the propulsion system to propel yourself off the planet that you've been stuck and raised on, that you grew from. And not that you leave its orbit, but you use it to, and now you can see it from above, see it for what it was, take all those things and direct them at what you want to do. You know, it becomes more, like you said, a game. Like it's life is, I mean, if you're the main character, which you are, and then you become present in that way, to treat it as that game. And okay, now, like if you've ever played like an RPG like Skyrim or like Fallout or something,
Final Fantasy. That was mine.
for sure. And it's like, cool, I got this new sword and it has like +10 to like mana or whatever. And these things, like you can take make sure your hat and your sword and your jacket all do +10 to mana. So that's 30 to mana. So now you can use this new spell, like stacking your character's traits in yourself. Like how does each piece, it's like the 1% of everything. If you made everything about you and your craft's ability to exist like 1% better, then if let's say there's 100 things, you're 100% better. It's like twisting each thing to be in the right direction for what you want to do.
I really love that analogy, and I really love the analogy about the orbit, because even the part in which you get to a certain distance from the planet you grew up on, and then look back and see it for what it was or what it is, and then you still connected to it, but now you connected to it from a larger distance in which you're more. You have to figure out things on the fly, and if things go wrong, you can't just use mission control. Like you actually have to figure out things on your own. So it's this analogy runs pretty deep, and I feel like I don't know, like this is so hopeful and I love that idea. I just don't know to what extent this can be translated for everybody. And when I say I don't know, I don't mean I don't think it can. I'm literally saying like I don't know what would be the steps to, like, if somebody's like got abused or was like really depressed or
I mean, sometimes the gravity on your planet is so immense, and that's why there's these success stories. That's why people love the hero's journey, because like when someone's in such a deep level of pain and trauma and they have to climb out of it, it is not easy, and it's their own thing to do. Like everyone's got something, but and also the thing is too, like I know that I'm fully privileged. Like growing up, I knew, like, my parents, I grew up in a nice place, and I grew up in Culver City, and my parents were really well off. We had a nice house. Like, there was a point at which we started losing money and whatever, and it went down. I got to see a little bit of both sides, but I knew there was a moment when I dropped out of school, I looked around and I was like, oh, I'm totally taken care of. And I have about 3, maybe 4 more years before I'm not. So I'm just going to spend all my time getting to the point I want to get to, because I only have a limited time. But I was like, cool, I'm taken care of, so I can just focus. So I had that luxury. Not everybody has that luxury, but if you do, I think it's important to do that. And when you don't, like, I don't know that situation, but I've met many people who have just killed it based, even whatever traumas they have. You make more time in the day. You get up at 5 instead of waking up, and like you can make more time. And that's work that I was lucky enough not to have to do necessarily. But I mean,
it's amazing that you recognize, because it's not always easy to recognize what you have because you just have it.
I mean, I'm a Jewish white kid from Culver City. I'm a 3rd generation Los Angelean. Like literally, I found out yesterday, I'm 3rd generation Los Angeles. Like my grandmother was born in Los Angeles. Like,
holy shit.
Yeah.
Does it have a name? I don't know if it has. Like, people from Indiana are called Hoosiers.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. I don't
Hoosiers.
know. I don't know if
Why do they call them Hoosiers?
Sure. We should probably look it up. I don't have a Jamie here.
Jamie, can
Jamie,
you
pull up a Hoosier?
See, can you
Is that how Jamie sounds? It just sounds like a mutt. What the fuck? Jamie, we're sorry.
We still
You're
don't
awesome.
understand how you learn English. You have the internet. Oh, I'm just kidding.
The one person on the planet who doesn't like Jamie for no fucking reason. He's such a nice guy. It's like there's something about these producers, Ben for Tim Dillon. You know Tim Dillon?
I've never really watched the show, but I've known.
Bro, you have to.
I will, I will.
Seriously, he's fucking amazing. But but there's always like this like slightly more timid, but like a powerhouse that is a powerhouse in what he does. And they're kind of like, they always have this quality. It's very clear that they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
But they're always kind of like second grade citizens,
like,
but they're not.
They're off to the side because they're the one that's putting it all together, but they don't necessarily need to be in the front.
But they don't want to. Yeah. My favorite moment with Jamie, I think, was with Theo Vaughn when he was talking about Dutch people, and then with a straight face you just go like, Jamie, pull up a Dutch. And Joe was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't know, they're very square, they're downhill people. I'm like, what? Pull up a Dutch.
Google that. Google. I mean, I guess you could set up like an Amazon Alexa. I don't know. AI is.
No, it will eventually come. It will be a glorious day when I don't have to actually worry about fucking.
Oh my gosh.
Like everything. I'm really happy that I get to do this like that because it gives me so much experience and control. But man, it will be sweet to not worry about that stuff.
Well, also this is the point at which also I'm at that point with the music where it's you're collecting rocket fuel. Like to stay on that analogy, like. You're getting into orbit right now, and if you stay on course, you will get into orbit. And you will, because that's how this works. Especially YouTube has shown, like, the fact that there are YouTubers and that's a career now. I mean, like Mr. Beast, like, is the YouTube, like he is
the perfect name too.
Yeah, he's just put out like a chocolate, like what, and he had like Beast Burger or something. I don't know, but it shows that if you do something long enough, you will be successful, whether you succeed or not.
I can also put out a sex tape.
Yes, that works too.
Not on YouTube though, unfortunately.
Well, if you you can label
maybe in YouTube Shorts.
You can label
it. Nobody's ever tried this. Just a sex tape on TikTok. Just 15
label
seconds.
It art exhibit or like butt exam or something. Oh my gosh.
What I wanted to. What age was this when you kind of figured this out? When you had like 4 years to go before you're going to be being taken care of?
I don't know. Well,
like was it 16? Was it 20?
Well, I stopped. I dropped out of school in 10th grade. I convinced my parents that I was getting migraines, which I had them every once in a while, but school was not my thing. The teachers hated me. I answered every question and I didn't do any of the work. Like I was like, just this.
Why did they hate that? Just because they wanted meticulous students?
They're tenured and they don't want to. All they want to do is get through the day at their job, and they're tenured, so it's difficult to fire them. So at a certain point, and this is not all of them, but a lot of them, they just like don't care anymore. And so when there's a kid there, just like doing all the things that they want in the talking, but making it hard for everyone else to learn. So I don't know. It just
was that you?
Yes.
Oh, you motherfucker.
I was.
you had so much talent, but you ruined out of people's lives.
I would especially science class, like all of my science teachers were just like, they hated having me in the class because it was like, why is the chlorophyll? Like, I don't know. I loved that stuff. So I would just remember it. And history class too, I just knew it. So I would just like answer every
history
question.
Man, I could never stand history.
Dude, history
I don't know why.
History is, for some reason, it's still my jam, especially like everything that I'm into these days. I'll just go into the full history of it. Like if there's a new band I like or an old band I like, if I listen to one song that I like, I have to learn their whole history. Okay,
so that's interesting because I make a big distinction between that kind of history and like human history. So like I totally get that. In fact, if I get into, I don't know, somebody, doesn't matter if it's a YouTuber, a spiritual leader, it doesn't matter. The second I start downloading it in a way that is like, oh, I like this. Mm-hmm. The first thing I gotta do is go check up on them. Yeah. Like I gotta go through like the thing. But I see it as like a background check. Yeah, I don't know. It's like maybe it's like kind of like the Russian in me, but it's not. I don't see it as history. But that's a beautiful way of thinking about it because that is the history of that thing. But do you not like for you? It's not different than our history. Like when you in school, you're not learning history of bands. You're learning history of the world.
Well, in school, you're learning history from a textbook with drawings in it that are. Like, okay, I completely uninvested when I was in health class one year. I don't remember.
What is health class?
In middle school, I was in health class, and they teach you like like how to put a condom on a banana, except for some reason they pulled out a pink dildo and I had to put a condom on in front of the whole class. Of pink dildo. They gave the banana to the girl.
Sex ed.
Yeah, basically, but also like drugs and stuff. They'll talk about drugs. And the moment I completely divested, whatever, is they open the textbook. Sunvests, you know, like Marty. Okay, so in the book, it says weed is the most powerful hallucinogenic on the planet. And it will kill you if you do it like 6 times. And I read this and I'm stoned in class. Like, and then luckily the teacher goes, yeah, let's skip over this part. It's not true. And I was like, okay, so if it's
what school did you go to?
I went to Culver City Middle School and High School. And it was, there was a lot of things in those books where I was just like, if I leave, I will get arrested or my parents will get fined. First of all, I'm confined to this space legally. Second of all, I have to read from this book that there's some company that printed it that's upcharging it like crazy. Like a textbook's like $200.
Bro, you're so Jewish.
I know. You too. Baruch atah.
Fucking thinking about upcharging books and how he's legally bound to school.
Oh my gosh.
Before I forget, so finish this point, but I know I will fucking forget because I keep forgetting this point. After that, I want to ask you what age you started to actually play music, but finish this point, please.
All right, so in school, it was a prison, essentially, in my mind. And I realized that the textbooks were most likely lying and just propaganda. And so I completely uninvested in that. I convinced my parents to let me go into independent study, saying I had headaches, and plus I was ditching class all the time. So my parents got me into independent study. I befriended my independent study teacher, and I told her, look, I'm not doing this. I'm going to be a musician. I'm not doing school. So I just wouldn't do the work. And every time I'd come in, she'd be like, you didn't do anything again. And I'd be like, yeah. And she's like, okay. Did you play music? And like after a few times, she'd be like, okay, well, it seems like you're not going to do this. So there is like, I can sign off on you dropping out.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, because
that's legal?
I was the age. Yeah. I was like, I think it was like there's a certain age, like, or like maybe 9th grade or something you're allowed to in that district or something. So they asked me and I was like, okay, yeah, I had like a presentation. I was like, I'm going to be a musician. I spend all my time when I'm home, which is all the time now because independent study, I have a flat screen TV that I found on the side of the road that I fixed, put on my wall next to a mirror with my guitar amp, and I would watch Jack White play in the White Stripes, and I would copy him. And I was like, if I do this all the time, I will be successful. Like if I just copy, he became a mentor, this character on the internet. I had YouTube and so I just told her that, and she's like, okay, and signed it. I didn't go. I didn't even tell my parents. So I was just like, I just don't go. So I went to Time Warp Music instead every day, the guitar shop in Mar Vista, instead of school.
That's so you knew.
Are we back on? We're back on.
So we're back on. Yeah. So what we were talking about off camera for a second is that like how in conversations and podcasts sometimes the flow is not always there, and then we said that like I guess being a professional podcaster is somewhere where you start delivering no matter how you feel, right?
Yes.
Then you said that you picked up something from our friend Desmond, who calls himself Diamond.
So Diamond, so here, there was a show I played that there was not many people there. There was like, I don't know, there was like 5 people, and I was like, I went on stage. I brought everything else, like kind of dreading it because there's no one there, and I totally half-assed it, and I was like so bummed at myself. And then I went and saw Diamond play, and I was like, there was like 3 drunk people in the room, and he's in this like sparkling outfit with like frills on, just killing it to like tracks, like vocal tracks. And I just was like, every time I go on stage now, no matter what, Diamond, just
interesting.
Diamond.
So you're saying because he definitely has that element where he just gives the crowd, even if it's a crowd of one person, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Just do it. It's what you do.
There was one show that we went to see him. It was glorious. He was playing in a hotel. Oh, it's always glorious, but it was glorious for a different reason. He literally stepped on a glass table in front of us, and the table just flipped over and it just broke. And he just kept on fucking singing. He was like, "No, are you gonna fix this?" It was amazing.
That is awesome.
Everything fucking champagne flew everywhere, and he just kept on dancing. Like it was like nothing fucking happened. It was amazing.
That's my new thing lately. Just there's no one here. Okay. Diamond, let's go. But, so I can hit it.
But I'm sure it's hard to pick up energy that way, though.
Yeah.
Because there's something that you get, like you feed from the audience, right?
Yeah. Well, in that case, you're taking the lead. Like a lot of times you need to take the lead. If there's one person there and they're like, and you're like, then everyone's like, But if they're like, I don't know, and you're like, come here, or you're just in it for yourself, and then you invite them in, like, then they start to want it, and then they come in,
Interesting.
So I don't know. There's different flows, but
No, that's definitely way harder, I'm sure, for a comedian, for any kind of performer, for a musician. So obviously you started playing way younger. Was it really young, or was it like around 9, 10?
No, well, I played when I was really young. I played piano and I had singing lessons. And
So you were kind of like classically trained.
Well, I was in musical theater. I was on stage. I played the flying monkey in the onstage production of Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
I
holy
did a
shit.
cartwheel. My wings fell off.
Whoa.
Bugsy Malone. I kissed the girl I wasn't supposed to kiss. It didn't make any sense for the storyline, but I felt pretty good about it.
Did she feel pretty good about it?
Yeah, it was good. It was
good.
consensual.
You never know, man. You might still get Me Too in like 10 years from now about
These
that.
days.
So you never know.
Oh my gosh.
Retroactive punishment.
Allegations. Oh no. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, it was musical theater, then it was piano teacher, and then it was actually, so my piano teacher would teach me out of this book, and it was like, I remember being like, piano class. So I would go, and like, she would be like, okay, Mary had a little lamb, whatever. And I'd be like, all right, great. Can I leave? And one day she was sick, and this guy comes in, like, and I'd had like 40, maybe it sounds like I had like 40 or 50 of lessons at this point. I'd had a lot of them, and she was sick. And this guy came in, just like this cool dude, seemed like a jazz musician or some like, I don't know, cool dude, cool hat, whatever. He sits down with me at the piano and he's like, fuck this. He like throws the book. He's like, what do you like? And I think I turned on like some dubstep song I was into at the time. And I was like, I like this song. I didn't really know what I liked yet, but he was like, okay, play it. And he could just play it. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Like, you can just, and he's like, yeah, just look at it, find it. And once you hit it, that's the note. And now if you learn these shapes, you can play it. And it was like one lesson from this guy explaining this to me completely changed all of it. I quit that class. and I was like, now I just know how to play. And it's seeing my grandfather play too. He always had a grand piano in the corner of his house. And I would sit down with him and he would just like, it looked like he was playing random notes, but it like sounded good. So I would just like copy the randomness, the style of randomness he would do. And then that kind of became my style of playing music. So it was piano early on and singing, and then that changed my perspective. So I got a ukulele.
What a jump.
Naturally.
You know how you progress from piano to ukulele?
Oh my God. It's a pretty badass instrument. No. So then
I'm surprised it wasn't a harmonica.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really play a harmonica actually. I think I tried. And
you totally look like somebody who can just whip it out and totally play it.
I could pretend, but I think so. What happened was I moved to this place. Actually, I was living up on the hill, the Culver Crest, and I met this kid in school named Rudy, and he taught me how to moonwalk. I saw him doing it. I was like, that's cool. How do you do that? And he showed me, whatever. And we became friends. And then I was like, what are you doing after school? And he's like, I don't know. You want to hang out? And I said, yes. And then he was like, where do you live? I said, the Culver Crest. And he's like, are you like a creeper or something? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I live on the Culver Crest, Cranks Road. And we were like, what? And we were neighbors. And we were like, okay.
You just come with the same person. It's like, what do you mean?
You're like, what? And then he was me, and then I woke up right here. So I go over to his house. I walk down the street, and we hang out. We started hanging out every day. And his sister played music, and she would always play in front of her family in the backyard. There would be like smoking weed, and she would play music. They're like, Alexa, play music for us. And then they were so excited about it, like, and they were so supportive, and she was so good. Like, seeing their reactions to her as if I succeeded at a magic trick that I was striving to do all the time, is like to impress somebody somehow, to be like, oh, I have superpowers or whatever. I saw that happening there, and that, like, I was like, I'm doing this. I got to try. So I played ukulele for a bit because I had one, and then I learned the hardest song on ukulele, which was Jake Shimabukuro's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." It's pretty cool.
It sounds like it's the hardest song to just say the name of it.
Yeah, it's
just as hard to play.
It's the hardest song for a lot of stuff, But so I learned that, and then I learned guitar. I moved to guitar. There wasn't enough strings on ukulele. And then one day we were hanging out, me, that girl, and another girl. And the other girl who didn't play music, she was...
Oh, that girl didn't play music.
She didn't play music. She was actually one of my teacher's daughters or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I thought there was something there.
No. She was like my teacher's daughter or something. That's how I knew her. But she pulled out a song and played it. And then Alexa, this girl who played and I had been seeing was this level of talented, was like, oh my gosh, that was cool. And then I was like, I could play one. So I fell in love with a girl by the White Stripes on the floor, like full screaming and everything, like this angsty little kid that's never played in front of anyone, ever sang in front of anyone. I did it. And then all of a sudden she came up behind me and hugged me and was like, oh my gosh, that was so good. And first of all, I'm like, holy shit, I have a crush on this person now. It's over. But then also it was like totally reinforced that. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like it was like the full approval of impressing somebody that I had chased in one moment from trying to copy her getting it. And it just like ingrained itself into me. And I was like, this is the way that I can feel whatever that acceptance is. And then it evolved into all these other things. But that was the initial seed of it. And
so do you think that's why you also stuck more with the guitar now than staying on keys?
Yeah, well, piano always felt a little...
too structured for you?
I don't know about structured, but it's limiting. Like, you can't carry a piano around. Plus, like...
Well, that's when you go to the gym, man.
Yes. Jeremy Jackson out here.
Did you just say Jeremy Jackson?
Yeah, get Jeremy Jackson.
Yeah, no, he was the second guest. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I wonder if he can carry a piano on his back all the time.
I don't know. I saved him from the ocean.
You did?
Did I tell you this story?
No.
Oh my gosh, he might be mad at me for telling this story. We were in Nicaragua, and Jeremy Jackson, if you don't know, is the kid from Baywatch. Well, he was the kid from Baywatch, so I thought this was particularly poetic. We were.
It is very ironic. Yeah.
We were in Nicaragua. Me, him, and Justice were surfing, and we go out. We paddle out, and the waves in Nicaragua, they can get like as high as a house, like really big. And the day was pretty big, and we go like a mile out to hit the break. We're swimming, and like I'm a good surfer. I'm a decent surfer, but like we're going into like it's Playa Colorado. This is like the nicest place to surf. You go out and it's big.
So pros that go there?
It's like the pro spot. It's always like you can watch on Instagram. People are like barreling every day. There's a cafe that you can just watch it happen. It's awesome. But we paddle out there. We get like a mile out and we're all like exhausted. And these big waves start rolling in. Now we've hit where the break is because it's pretty far out. And the wave goes up. I see Jeremy go over the wave. And then the wave's coming up. And I go over it and it's like... whew, like you get yanked into the sky, like full like a house, like the size of a house, like
shit.
Roll. And I go over, and as I go down, there's another wave, and I don't see Jeremy, but I hear Lucas. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? What's happening? Is there a shark? There must be a shark or something. I was like, and he's like, Lucas. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? So I paddle really fast over there, and he's like, I'm having a panic attack right now out here. Like, oh no, there's more waves, and he starts like it just like overtook him. And I get it, like it was a scary situation, but I was just in such a state of like, this is interesting that the fear didn't come into my mind. I was in a really interesting state of peace. And so I came out and I gave him my board, and he's like, oh, thanks. So we got to go in. And I'm like, no, we do not go in. Cause if you swim back towards the shore, the waves, that's where they're crashing right now. Cause we're in the middle of a swell.
So you got to stay behind him.
So we had to wait. And he's like, we got to go. And then Justice met up with us. So we had gotten all the way out there. It took us like a half an hour to get like a mile out. And then now we have to turn around because his board is yanked and at shore. Like,
oh, so that's what happened. He didn't have a board.
His board, as he went over the wave, got yanked off of his leg, ripped off. And so he was just floating out there by himself.
So is that, I actually know nothing about, I mean, I surfed a couple of times, but I know nothing about it really. Is it more dangerous to be in high waves without a surfboard?
The problem is when you're out in big waves, well, it's more the consistency of the waves. If you don't have a flotation device or a surfboard or whatever, if the wave crashes and you're under and it crashes hard and you go deep, you have to swim up. And by the time you get up for air,
there's another wave.
And if that happens
and then it just
4 or 5 times in a row,
you just can't breathe anymore.
You can't breathe. So
then the bubble thing.
You start breathing the bubbles because you think you're air. So it can get dangerous. that particular day was just, the waves were scary. Like it was intense. So then we start paddling back, and he has my board now, and it's Justice and Jeremy here, and Jeremy at this point is like gotten through it a bit, and it was intense. Like I don't blame him. Like that moment I would have freaked out too if I lost my board. But he's here, and I'm paddling between them like this on my back, like floating like to get a mile in this huge waves, just like people swim the English Channel all the time. Like that was my thought. I was like repeating that in my head, just like, okay, we're gonna be fine. And we get back to shore, and then we find the board on the shore. But
man,
yeah, that was the time I saved Jeremy Jackson from the ocean.
That's a crazy fucking story. And Jeremy's a beast.
Oh yeah,
We went to the ocean one time to train with him. Remember that day when we all went?
Oh yeah.
And Jeremy goes into the ocean. And he
why
emerges from the water. I was like, bro, you look like an ocean beast. It's like this fucking bison, just
Aquaman, dude. Well, and that's why it was so, in the moment, I think it was actually good that it was so surprising to me that he was feeling that way in the moment, because it totally changed my frame. It was such a...
Well, everybody gets scared.
Oh,
Listen,
yeah.
The scariest moment of my life was also with water. In the ocean, but it wasn't even in the ocean. We were sitting on one of those wave breakers, what are they called? Kind of like right next to the shore. And this one wasn't even one of those that you got to swim to. This was literally attached to the beach in Tel Aviv. And we just went there and got stoned. Me and a buddy of mine, I think I was like, I don't know, 15 or something. We got so fucking stoned. And you know how everything is so amplified when you're on weed. Mm-hmm. And we had the brilliant idea to see how close we can come to the end of it before it starts getting weird, right? Mm-hmm. And it was evening, so I think the tide was coming in, and the sun was setting, and obviously we just kept on incrementally going forward, and eventually we got to a point where there was one wave that basically kind of like, the water kind of went a little further down the rocks in front of us, and all of a sudden this thing did just like the scariest thing about it was that it wasn't even. It wasn't crashing or anything. It's just the water started coming in and it wouldn't stop. So it gently lifted us.
Whoa.
And we're like, what are you grabbing?
Yeah.
There's nothing to grab.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and it started going back. We're like, oh. We started grabbing the rocks. And then somehow we managed to stay on the rocks. And we're like, whew. And the second we did that, I literally saw the bottom of the thing because it just went.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and we look up and this giant thing coming at us, and he just smashed into us. I didn't even know where I was. I somehow slid all the way back to the other side, like through the rocks, all the way back to the other side of this thing.
Whoa.
I just slid on it, and I was covered in blood because it like cut my leg from the bottom. And I remember my friend Robert, we were like there together. He was like, Donnie. He just like started screaming my name. And I was happy to hear his voice because I thought that's the end for both of us.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm here. And then it took him a second to hear me out. But let me tell you, that was by far, if not the scariest, maybe top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
This is the most scared that I can remember myself ever being.
The water is no joke. Yeah.
Bro, I didn't go to the beach for maybe like a year and a half.
Dude, I bet. I mean, I had the same reaction when I watched Jaws for the first time. I didn't go to the ocean for a long time. But dude, water is, it's surprisingly like, it has trickery built into it. It seems nice, but when you have a lot of it, it's like, it's dangerous. The most scary moments of my life too.
Sounds like people.
Yeah, you never know. But the scariest moments in my life are water too. Like one time I slipped down a waterfall and I was just held under, and then my uncle like grabbed my arm and pulled me out, but at the last second. And then one time I got stuck under it was this big raft seat thing, and it was flipped over, and my friend was on top of it, and I came up for air, barely about to like, if you're like swimming up and you're like, I only have like one more second, I'll be fine for that tiny little blip left, and then I'll breathe. You get up, and now there's this floaty on my head. It's like the same thing.
Fuck.
Like I definitely, the scariest moments happen in water. So nothing against, like, I completely understand if in Jeremy's situation. I feel like I would have been in that exact situation if we were flipped. It was just, but that was the level of the waves there. It was insane, and we were far out. And a few days later, Justice actually swam out in another spot we were at, like just as far, if not farther, by himself. And like the whole time we were all like, is Justice okay? So like I actually walked along the beach and just like tracked him while he was out there and just like watched from a distance and chilled on the sand. I was like, I'm just gonna do this because I don't know, like, cause it's no joke out there, man.
Did you ever get to like a life and death situation with the waves?
With the
Or
ocean,
you got pretty lucky?
I've had moments where I've come up for air, flipping around, and yeah, like where the waves hit you, it's like 4 or 5 waves in a huge break, and your board's gone. Like, and I've been by myself in that situation a few times, and the key to those situations is always surrender. It's always
Well, yeah,
it's always
but it's
like,
not always the easiest thing to do. Obviously.
yeah, well, and it's interesting though, because when you fall into the water, that's what I like about surfing besides like skateboarding or something. If you fall on a skateboard, you break something, it's a loud ending, right? As opposed to surfing and you fall off the waves, it's a pretty like serene, it's like you land in a heaven space. You go in, it's like, and you just like in.
But also you're
quietness.
you go alone.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like, I mean, it can be very daunting.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, bye.
Yeah, totally.
And
well, I always think of it like as soon as I land in the water off a wave, I'm in the womb again, and I'm just like, ah.
well, that's
So-
an interesting perspective. I wish that this would be that easy to like adopt and again, that maybe that's the secret to a lot of the moments of your flow, because you kind of Wim Hof. There's a story that he was telling in one interview in which, I don't know if you heard this, but when he broke one of his Guinness records for longest under ice water swim, I think it was like supposed to be 100 meters or something. So, the way the Guinness records work is that you have a whole team. They set it up. They set up the rules. They set up the location, whatever. And then they kind of, they have security there, like just so nothing is touched and everything's the same. So he goes there the day before because he kind of wanted to just feel the distance and the thing. And he goes in. So it's one of those like fish holes. And you go in and you're supposed to re-emerge on the other side 100 meters away.
Yeah.
So he goes in and he just starts swimming. And then he's swimming and swimming and swimming. And then he realizes that he doesn't know where the other hole is.
Oh my gosh.
And he's telling the story exactly like you're saying, surrender. He's saying that in that moment, all he thought immediately, he knew that, well, this is it. So he said, I just kept on swimming. And I accepted it entirely. And I just kept on swimming. And I knew this is it. And I was okay with it.
Yeah.
I had a good life. And in that moment, one of the divers that was there kind of securing the area that they're supposed to, there's always divers there to kind of help the situation in case. He saw that it's taking too long. So he dove in and he grabbed him.
Oh, man.
But he said that he swam beyond the hole probably like another 50 meters. So technically he swam like 150 meters, but it wasn't like an official event. So,
Oh my
but that surrender moment
Yeah.
is so, he's like, yeah. And I don't know if those are, depending on what perspective you take about life, I would say that there's a chance that the fact that somebody grabbed him might had something to do with him surrendering.
Yeah.
Or not. I don't know. But it seems like
so there's something to be said about the concept of the quantum roulette. The quantum roulette.
Oh, thank you. There you go.
So
Hello.
the
Can we do the whole second part maybe like kind of like in the 50s? So they're like,
well, so there's this concept. So the quantum. Do you know about this concept? Like it's like, or is it quantum revolver? I don't know. Like Russian roulette. If you were
if you okay, but tell I think I know what you're talking about, but tell the details.
So, I mean, it's been a while since I've studied this, but essentially, imagine you're playing Russian roulette. And this is in the context of quantum physics, but you're playing Russian roulette and you spin it. From your perspective, if you pull the trigger, you will never die. And this is no one take this as any sort of truth, but the thought experiment.
Yeah, please don't try this at home.
Don't try
Please.
this. Unless it's in VR. And it's actually pretty fun in VR. But if you play Russian roulette, the idea is that you always win theoretically, and you always are still aware and awake in your version of reality. In your multiverse that you continue on, you are now, since you've given up and fallen into the surrender, you are now going this direction, but you don't end in your timeline. You actually continue in your timeline, and some versions see you in each timeline where you did or you didn't get shot or whatever it is. But the concept is that for you, you will continue. So maybe that surrender has something to do with, like, his act of surrendering was what brought him to that multiverse. But
that's interesting. So I think the premise of this, if I'm not mistaken, is that This is essentially like a thought experiment in which you're testing whether you live in a multiverse or not. And if you are, then all the versions of yourself, like you would never not be, like there's always going to be something that's going to happen that's going to make you survive. Either the gun doesn't go off or whatever, but there's always going to be something, right? So I actually don't remember the exact details of the thought experiment, but that's essentially what it is. What I always found interesting about it is that, well, okay, but what happens at the end of your life, or is the thought is that in all the lives there's always some kind of a version of it that you somehow live forever? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and
because
yeah,
you see what I mean? Like, there's a difference there.
yeah, that's where the afterlife can get a little.
Well, not even afterlife. Like, where does it? Like, if you if it's kind of like Groundhog Day, and you shoot yourself and you wake up in the same bed, even if you don't remember it, right? Do you still wake up? Let's say you wake up to the same life or whatever. But what's interesting about what you're saying is that what would be the thing that it continues into? Like, because if you wouldn't surrender, then the experiment would fail.
Well,
like, then he would die ultimately?
Well, I don't know. I just saw some correlation there, but I think in the surrender, let's say it does. Let's say in this there is a reality in which this is true, and you don't ever end. I mean, I feel like you and me both kind of have a feeling of what happens after. I mean, there's a certain place you can go. Certain people have seen.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But I don't know if. But I honestly don't know. I always had this thought of, it's kind of like it's just a thought that I had once, and it always fascinated me. And the thought is, what if, imagine yourself, like you, Lucas, not like humanity, but you as you, and everybody can think of themselves, obviously. What if in your reality, it's kind of like this thing where you just happen to live at the right place at the right time, where both the technology evolved in the time that you existed to do that, and also you were one of the lucky ones that kind of got to go through those experiments that allowed you to live longer, and then longer, and then longer, and then longer, and all of a sudden you're 10,000 years old, and you're like, what are the chances of that? And then you keep living, and then you're alive for like millions of years, and then billions of years, and then, I don't know, Googleplex years, whatever.
Yeah.
And at the end of all that, that's kind of like where the thought culminated. That's what the thought culminated in, which is I had this very clear visual of like a big, super shiny rock. Like it's like the most beautiful, slick, almost metallic looking kind of like black rock that you arrive at the end of time or whatever it is. And you look at it, and in that instance, like you look into the thing, and then you realize everything. It's just like your brain recapitulates. They say your brain recapitulates your entire life right before you die.
Yeah.
You recapitulate the entire history of the universe, and you realize you were God the whole time. You personally.
Well, yeah.
And then it all like fucking restarts all over again.
Well, this is entirely plausible. Okay. So here's a concept. I'm just going to explain real quick just to kind of give an idea of the reference of what I'm talking about with this exact thing you're saying. So imagine that sphere, that thing is a black hole, right? This is an interesting concept. Like, I like to think of time itself with a viscosity. Like, let's say water and honey. You move through one pretty easily, the other one you got to swim a little harder. So the viscosity of time changes depending on how much gravity is in an area. So near a black hole, time slows down because it's pulling on time. Acceleration, gravity, and time are kind of all the same thing, and it's pretty complicated. But let's say I jumped backwards into a black hole and I had a tennis ball. And I
jumped back into like,
let's say you're over there,
I see,
and there's a black hole behind me, and I jump into it, and I throw the tennis ball at you as I'm falling into it. For me, it looks like the tennis ball's going, and then let's switch to your perspective. You're looking at me, I jumped, now all of a sudden I'm stopped, and the tennis ball is thrown but stopped as well. And I look like I'm not moving forever now because it's way beyond, my time has slowed down so much that it looks like I'm not
permanently.
Well, for your perception, it's permanently because it's longer than your lifetime. But
well, no, it stopped at the event horizon. It's actually longer than the lifetime of the universe, essentially.
Well, Not necessarily. We don't know for sure. But there is, if I jump backwards into it and I throw it, for me, what it looks like, for you, it looks like I stopped. But for me, what it looks like is I throw it and now the entire universe goes and flashes in super fast speed and then it's over.
Yeah.
And all in one instant because time's just like got extremely viscous for me and extremely light and feathery for you. So in that moment, I did see the entire universe go in one instant. And for you, I just look like I stopped, and it's all relativity. It's how my time was slowed down in that moment from the event horizon. And I actually had a similar meditation at one point. I like floated up into the universe and then flew into a black hole and it inverted and I don't know, drugs.
I fucking love this one. So
bias in electronics is like constant voltage or frequency played for a specific reason. So like you have to play for on a tape, like if you want it to record, you need to excite all the little, because it's little rust particles on literally stuck in the middle of two pieces of tape, like iron oxide. Okay. And so you need to excite it, you need to vibrate it so they're like shaking. So when you record in a magnetic field into it, they're all free and mobile, and then they land in that position. But you need to excite it first with a bias.
So they record the structure of the sound structure?
Well, as it's going over the tape head, it goes, it's playing a high frequency higher than you can hear, so you don't hear it in the recording, but it's exciting the molecules. So now when you play any other frequency, they take that shape and then they land. And that's called a bias as well. And that was invented by the Nazis. That's why we used to use...
I love the trend.
Yeah, it was all invented by the Nazis.
So let's talk about the great things that Nazis did.
Well, Volkswagen, the shape of the Volkswagen logo is very interesting. The VW shape, it's actually it's a design that Nikola Tesla actually drew out it's like a very specific structure. It's that V and the W, I forget what, it's like an important mathematical thing where you're hitting like the 1, the 3, the 9, and the 6 if you had a clock, and it like draws it in that way. I forget.
They were nuts, man.
Yeah.
But, that's... Wait, but I want to go back to what we were talking about the black hole, because that was one of my favorite things. Okay. And I love how you tied it up with drugs, but it's fucking great. Okay. So I actually thought about... I wonder if there's and I think there's actually a theory that kind of outlines this, but I really love the idea that universes are essentially... Like inside of a black hole, the vector flips, and then the contraction looks like an expansion, and that's essentially what the expansion of the universe inside of it is. Mm-hmm. It looks it's coming from a big bang, but really it's coming from an event horizon flipped.
Yeah, for sure.
I really love that idea.
Most likely.
Yeah. So your interest in all the adjacent hobbies you have, like. Because you, from what I know, you studied Japanese very young, right?
I went to a Japanese elementary school.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're a little Jewish Japanese kid.
私は少しの日本語わかります。
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? You actually look Japanese when you say that. Your eyes literally go like this. I know it's I know it's very not PC, but it's fucking weird. I can totally see you as a manga character.
Yeah, I actually used to feel like a Japanese anime character. That's why I would like cut my hair and like.
Oh, manga is the pornography, right?
No, that's hentai. But
that's right. Okay. Yeah, so what's the difference between manga and
buttholes and probably octopus. They put a lot of octopus in hentai.
What?
You never seen that?
Wait a second. No, what's the difference between manga and what's the other thing?
Hentai?
No, not hentai.
Okay. Yeah.
Fucking the other thing you said, anime.
Anime. Oh, manga is pulp. It's like comic. It's written.
Okay, got it. So, I didn't know that. Okay.
So like Pulp Fiction being comics because it's like the pulp on the paper that the pulp is made out of. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as the concept of manga is the physical copy of. Anime is like the TV version.
Oh, I see. So it's like the moving pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, so you study Japanese, which, by the way, me and Kelsey are trying to do now because we might actually go to Japan.
If you have any questions.
Oh, I definitely will. Ni! Gee, that's all I know.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
We had one of our tests was we had to count to 100 in second grade. We had to count to 100.
It's so foreign, isn't it?
It is, but it makes sense the more you get into it. It is just kind of weird though because like there's three written ways of. There's 3 ways to write.
I discovered it on Duolingo.
Which
is weird. What is it for?
Well, so there's kanji, which is like contractions. Like you write things in shapes like Chinese kind of, but they're not the same as Chinese, but some of them are actually exactly the same, but they're not the same words. They're the same shapes. But there's hiragana, which is you write everything in hiragana. There's katakana, which is...
Wait, what do you mean you write everything in hiragana?
Every word, if you're not writing it in kanji.
Kanji, hiragana.
Kanji, hiragana, and katakana.
Katakana.
So hiragana...
Kata is something repetition, no? Because kata in martial arts, in the karate, it's like repetition of a...
Maybe kata means like I got it. Like...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like
Interesting.
Kata. I think so. I don't know. I need to...
Because kata in karate is when they repeat them. It's like the dance you do in order to kind of remember motion.
I don't know. I mean, it may or may not be related, but there's in hiragana, like let's say you have any Japanese word, you write it in either kanji or hiragana. They have specifically, like, if you were to write a word in English, like let's say doorstep, if you would put doorstep, and you would write.
What did you just say?
I don't know. This is a random.
Is this you speaking Japanese? Speaking Japanese?
No,
you just say doorstep.
Seriously.
All this fucking time we're trying to learn.
No, you could.
I drink water.
Well, okay, so you're using the letters like they don't have L, they have R.
Yeah,
R.
which is very bizarre.
So my name is Lukas. So you can't say Lucas, you say Lukas. So, and the way you would write that, since it's in English, this is a good example. Lukas, you'd have to say it that way because you got R and dash, which is like extending it, R, and then ka, which would be the K and the A sound, but it's one letter because that's all they have, ka, and then su. But since it's an English word, you write in katakana to show it's another language.
Oh,
so katakana.
All the other languages you have to write in katakana.
If you're transliterating it to Japanese, which would mean like you're writing the equivalent in Japanese, it's katakana, basically.
Do you use katakana for anything else or just for that?
I think it's just for other languages, but I may be.
That's interesting.
Sure.
I wonder if they developed it because they saw that the Western world is so different.
Well, yeah, Japanese culture always followed and copied a lot of things from America, like guitar pedals.
And bombing other people.
Oh, no. They make better guitar pedals than Americans, except for like a couple. But
I know nothing about that. I would love to talk about that.
I love them.
Yeah, I know. You actually have a channel you just revived on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Is it all about guitar pedals? Or
No, it's just whatever I feel like filming. But I do want to do guitar pedals because that niche is like, there's so much misinformation of things that I've studied and like I know the truth. Like this is one pedal called a Univibe, which sounds like... And so it's basically, people are always like, it's meant to copy a Leslie speaker, but it's actually, the guy invented it because it's copying the Russian radio signals he heard bouncing off the atmosphere, and he wanted to copy that. So it's like, but the people keep telling it in YouTube videos, and I'm like, can we stop this?
Why does it matter? I mean, does it matter for the functionality of it? Or?
No, but
okay, it's just the nerding out of it.
Well, it matters because you could buy a pedal to emulate that thing that they're saying it's emulating, and it'll sound way better.
I see. So they're just misappropriating the what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's just wrong, and I'm a nerd.
No, I get that part, believe me. And then you have another video that is actually the one that has the most views, the one of you playing guitar with your teeth, which you do on stage, by the way, which is amazing.
I have actually decided to do it less because I have a crack.
What? It's
a microfracture, but I know.
So who used to do this? Jimi Hendrix?
Jimi Hendrix. I actually learned it because I went and saw, what's his name? He plays at Sayers a lot, or played at Sayers when we were Sayers. Nick something.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. He's really, really
Australian.
good. Yes.
That guy. I saw him play, and I saw him play at El Cid, and he was playing with his teeth. It was amazing. And then Javen, actually, Justice's brother Javen, I told him that I was like, I want to learn how to do that. Maybe he'll teach me at some point. I was like, I don't know. And then one day Javen calls me and he's like, hey, I'm here with Nick. And then he's like, he comes over and I'm like, he brings him inside and we're just hanging out. I was like, can you show me that? So like Javen like facilitated him teaching me that. So it was kind of cool.
You do it really well on stage.
Thanks.
Is it not as hard as people think? Is it pretty much as hard as people think?
If you can play with one hand, which you learn because you kind of have to tap and stuff normally.
What do you mean play with one hand?
Like I can play and then not use this hand and just like tap the sounds.
Oh, I see.
If you can do that, then you can kind of do it.
So it's all about how much, like you have to kind of strum it as you
Yeah, I mean, well,
play the
that's more to
notes.
fill in the gaps. It's like you can do it and you'll miss notes, but like if you can do that, you'll be able to like fill in the gaps and make it look like you're actually doing
Because
it.
I would think, like, technically, I'm just trying to imagine that, like, when you place your teeth, right? You don't use anything else but your teeth, right? But you can't send like a tooth to like another place, right? At the same time, and like, so how do you do chords?
You
Like,
don't
okay.
do chords. I mean, you could if you go this, you
Okay.
hit this part and then you play one, but yeah, it's for soloing, really. And I mean, it starts with I'm pretty sure it started with T-Bone Walker, this old blues guy who like he was like kind of a jazzier blues kind of swing-ish blues guy, but he would like do the splits on stage, play with his teeth, put it behind his head. That's where all these guys got it from. It all comes from the blues, all of it. Like, and I didn't realize this until I kind of knew, but I happened upon meeting and hanging out with Gary Clark Jr.'s manager, and he was like, "I like your music, but you need to study all of this," and gave me like a list, and I just have it on my home screen on my phone, and I'm just like, every day I study all these people. I got to know who these people are, what they do, and then you learn. Like, I know now that a couple Gary Clark Jr. songs are like this guy Magic Sam's song mixed with another thing that he wrote on top of it, and I didn't realize you could just rip off these old songs and change the name to it, and it actually, I always was like, I can't do that, but what's cool about it that I'm realizing now is you're actually bringing this music to people now that would never find it otherwise. So it's like, it's not necessarily ripping off.
When you're saying ripping off, is it just copied to like a large extent and just kind of like with add-ons on top?
You're playing the song, basically. You're doing a cover. I mean, yeah, you're doing a cover and then you add and subtract things. I mean, but that's what blues has always been. Like a lot of the blues songs, the biggest blues songs that became rock songs even go back to like these dudes in a cotton field singing together. And then it just evolved as like think of like a lullaby. Like who wrote Happy Birthday? Like that's kind of what the blues was. And it moved and became rock and roll. When
They didn't have copyrights back then, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Led Zeppelin, like I could show you pretty much every single song that all of Led Zeppelin is ripping off. Like there's like,
But again, what's the term ripping off? I would assume that like there's a legal definition of how much of the song is copied, or it really doesn't matter.
yeah, I mean, at that point you're splitting hairs. It's also like Picasso.
No. I mean, nowadays, like you can't take a modern song
It's
and
the
remake
it's
it.
the
You're gonna
melody,
get sued, right?
Yeah, it's the melody really that you can get sued for. But it's also like I think it's Picasso says like something about stealing.
No,
It's like,
I agree that there's
genius
all
started to
art
steal.
is forms of imitation, right? Even if like I'm sure that some artists are like real groundbreaking people, and they just see something inside, but it's still based on techniques and things that exist. So I guess it's just what portion of the creation you copied or learned from somebody else, right?
Yeah.
It has to build on top of the other thing. You cannot just pop out of nothing, just like technology can't.
Yeah.
Right. So
Well, I think it's important if you are gonna steal or borrow like that. I think it's important to actually just reference where you got it from, and that was the biggest thing because I used to love Led
but I
Zeppelin.
don't think you're always aware.
Well, that's true. I mean, and that's where I do that a lot. Well, I'll write a song and I'll be like, oh, this is that song. But I changed it enough now, so it's not. So sometimes you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
But that was like, I used to love Led Zeppelin. And then up until this interaction with this person who told me all about all this blues stuff, and I started really studying, and then I started really getting annoyed with Led Zeppelin because I would like, there's this guy, Steve Marriott, who he was in this band called Humble Pie and this band Small Faces. And he like, we need Jamie to show you. Basically, like,
Jamie, pull up whatever this is.
if you can look up Black Coffee by Humble Pie. He's the greatest rock singer ever. Like you'll see, like it's crazy. And what's cool is
American singer?
yeah, American. Well, no, he's British. He was like this little guy. They were called Small Faces because like their whole band was like these little. They were like really. Their faces were small. Like they're
Wait, they were like little people?
well, they were very small. They were like very short and like, but this dude can just like wail. And what's crazy is they have this one song in Small Faces that's it's like Led Zeppelin copied it exactly. Even the singer and the tonality of the singer that Robert Plant has, it's like exactly the same as Steve Marriott. And so, but he got screwed over. He had bad management and stuff, but he's probably one of the greatest rock singers of all time. And it's Black Coffee by Steve Marriott. It's funny because
I'm gonna write it down. Black
Yeah.
Coffee by Steve.
so I was actually recently, I've been trying to like work on my voice and getting better. So I've been studying Steve Marriott. And what was crazy, this was a really weird day. You'll see why. So I was studying Steve Marriott, he's got this song Black Coffee. So I'm trying to sing it. It's like Black Coffee. Like I'm trying to do it. Like it's really hard. So I pitch it down and I'm working on it all day. And then it was like 2 days in a row I was working on the song Black Coffee and just trying to learn it and see if I can even get close at all, which I don't know. It's very tough. But I was doing that. And then I was making coffee one morning. Like in the midst of like, this is what's on my mind is this black coffee thing. I make coffee in the French press. I pour the water in. And then I push it down and it doesn't go in properly. And I push it and it shoots at me. And I legit burned.
Whoa.
Right? If you can see.
Whoa.
Here.
Yes.
So I 3rd degree burned myself with black coffee while learning the song Black Coffee, while attempting to. Like I felt like I got burned by the rock and roll gods, like attempting something impossible. And come to find out, I was studying his history. He died in a fire. And I was like,
oh shit.
So but Steve Marriott is way underappreciated.
Okay,
but that's
so
that's the stealing of borrowing of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
one of them.
Well, like I mean, you know, it's I think at a certain point we just kind of again we have to recognize that you don't go anywhere without some kind of information
and
that you started from.
You need to study the history and you need to copy these things to get to that point. I mean, it's everything we do. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Like,
always.
That's how it is. And I think also not to discredit Led Zeppelin or anyone doing that. I think it's actually
that would be a first. I think
it's necessary to do this, but there's definitely a confusion there. I feel like when it comes to stealing and borrowing, I think people are scared to, and I think people just do it. You can do it respectfully, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I also think that has a lot to do with how long the song was out. Like obviously, if the creator is gone and there's less eyes on it, I guess. There's always the company that probably owns it or a bunch of people that own it. But
yeah,
in the end of the day, somebody has to fight that battle. And I feel like if there's not enough there to win a case, nobody's going to follow it. And and also, again, it's like I think that there's a certain marker, there's a certain shape of it that does resemble the thing too much. So you're not really doing any creative work on top of it.
Yeah,
I think the thing that annoys about that is that you literally taking the thing and kind of refurbishing it and that's it.
Yeah,
which is like creating on top of it is a different story. Like
look at the recent Africa. They did Africa by what's Toto.
Yeah,
they covered that song. Was it Weezer? I think covered it or something.
Oh, I think so. Yeah,
and it's identical. It's the same, but it was like it was charting the thing. But
do you think they had to sign something with Toto?
I'm pretty sure they did something with them. But either way, it's not even different. It's like it's hard to tell the difference, and it's amazing that they can pull that off. But it's also like, I mean, it's just a weird thing. It's a weird space.
But it does feel like sometimes music recycles. Like there's always those periods, and people talk about it, right?
For sure.
So do you feel that? So what I wanted to ask you before is that all those side, interests of yours, physics, electrical engineering. Pedals, which is, I guess it's not adjacent, it's directly related. All those things, do you feel that they play any role in how you create music or not at all? It's just another thing that kind of allows you to rest in between.
You mean the thought process of like...
Does it ever enter your creative process? Like the way that the things you know about physics or the things you know about how electricity works, does it ever enter that space?
I'm sure it does. I think a lot of it is just the setting of the scene. I really believe in having a dojo. Someone told me a long time ago when I was little, this musician I was working with, as I was working at my first job, I was a daycare teacher. I would walk the kids. It was Lego engineering class or whatever, and I would walk the kids back and forth from it. And I was just I kind of kept an eye on the kids. And one of the teachers was a musician. He played synth poppy stuff. He was cool. And he had a tattoo that's a dojo. And I remember it really resonated with me. I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, it's just important to have your studio, your dojo space, because at any moment when it strikes, you want to be able to go in there and do it. So a lot of my creation is cleaning the room or cleaning my little studio in the Airstream. I have a little 4-track recorder and I'll set it up and wire it perfectly. And then when I'm ready, I just go bam. And it's uninhibited flow. So I think it comes in that way. But a lot of the writing of the music or creating of the music is flow state. So it's not like I'm really thinking too much.
Yeah, but arriving in the flow state, I think. Some people having an easier time with it. Some people don't even know it exists.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an enabler of arriving at flow state. all of those things.
So you basically find the ways. There's this book called The Rise of Superman by, I forget his first name, Kotler is his last name. I don't remember his first name. Maybe Steven. I don't know. Vika is going to hate me for this, but okay.
Coulter?
Kotler.
Kotler.
I think it's Steven. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But a friend of mine, she just like, he kind of took her under his wing because he's a known writer and she's a writer and a creator. And she's really like, she said she really got a lot from her interaction with him. So she's going to hate me for that. But sorry, Vika. Love you though. But anyways, the book is essentially about the flow state. And what he does, he looks at it through the lens of extreme sports. And essentially what he finds, he studied all these pro athletes in that space, from snowboarders to famous surfers, people who really do this on a very high level. Danny Wayne, the guy who jumped over the wall of China with rollerblades.
Danny Way?
Wayne, I think. I'm not sure. Actually, I might be butchering.
No, I'm thinking of the skateboarder Danny Way. He's got like a mega ramp.
No, I think this was with rollerblades. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I might have a memory lapse, but I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm sure it is. Yeah,
But no, I'm not sure. But I think it was.
I believe in you.
But anyways, so he talks about flow state through the lens of that, and what he discovered is that all those athletes, even though they never think about it like that, Alex Honnold, like the free solo climber, people like that, they really chase that feeling. It's not like the sport. It's almost like, obviously it's like a central thing because that's what they do, but really it's about the flow for them.
The sport's a vehicle.
And because the more dangerous the situation, the more you must find that state or you die.
Yeah. I mean, the free climbing thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's insanity.
That's a big nope for me.
Yeah. And how calm he is when he's doing it. It's fucking insane.
That dude. No, leave me out of that. You have fun. I can't even watch that.
No.
I saw that. I was like, I'm not watching this.
I even saw a video of somebody who I forget his name, but Alex Honnold said he's actually a better climber than him. And I saw this guy's thing, and he's actually like climbing really fast, also free soloing. And he just literally just like runs up the mountain and he just jumps and he grabs. And I'm like, bro, there's no rope. What the fuck are you doing?
What the fuck are you doing?
Like,
oh my gosh.
But essentially he discovered that what they really do, there's always that one function. That one function for all these people is that a lot of them say it's almost like a cheat code because it's so dangerous that you must find it, so you do.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
And that's how they get there. And then he talks about all the different, scientific studies that we know about flow state, and he talks about I never know how to pronounce his name. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the guy who actually came up with the state of the term state flow, the term flow. And essentially, yeah, I think that's what it is. But essentially, what he found is that it, just like with meditation and mushrooms, it actually it subtracts the activity in the DMN, default mode network, in the brain, and it allows for this much less self-centered activity where you, so to speak, become the activity.
Yeah,
so
you
there's
become
not so
your
much
outside.
you become the thing that you're doing, and essentially that you just become one with the environment. And his claim, which is a pretty radical claim, is that as far as he can tell, he's not sure there's an end to this. Like, because and this is the radical thing about the book. Like, it's one thing to accept that because we all accept that, but we know flow is real, and it comes up in different situations. But he's saying that it's actually not that far-fetched to think that this might not have an upper limit. So like the that's why it's called the rise of Superman. So he's saying it's just a matter of like how much we're willing to accept as possible. Because if you look at achievements in the Olympics, for example, yeah, there's this whole thing where it goes up drastically when somebody achieves a thing, and then everybody knows it's possible, right?
Yeah.
But when
the
you
900
look,
Tony Hawk,
exactly. But when you look at extreme sports, it's exponentially more. And you might say attributed to the fact that it's more dangerous, but he's saying, yes, it is a contributor. But the main operative there is that they enter flow more. So because they enter flow more, they can actually get to play. The achievements stack up so much more. Like the differences are insane between just the Olympics. I'm saying just the Olympics. Those people are amazing, right?
Yeah.
But between people who do like extreme sports on a very high level, like Tony Hawk, for example. So, and essentially, he makes some outlandish claims there, I mean, but he kind of breaks down like, it rests on a lot of real findings that we have. And one of the things that he kind of uses to prove it is it's actually the case of Danny Wayne, in which, I don't know if you know the details, but he essentially jumped over the wall of China between two giant ramps on rollerblades. And he missed the first day because it was like 5 feet or a couple of feet, a little bit too far.
Wow.
So he clipped himself, and then he fell in such a way that he tore, if I'm not mistaken, he tore his, what is it called? No, in the knee.
Ligaments.
All the ligaments. I forget the name of it, but basically
His leg noodle.
The leg noodle, exactly. Yeah. He shattered his knee, basically. And also his leg. There was like some major damage.
Yeah.
And basically, obviously they came with an ambulance, took him to the hospital, and they started disassembling the ramp. So I don't remember the details of how he told them, but essentially he called either his manager or somebody, and he said, no, don't break it down. And they're like, what? They're like, no, I'm going to try tomorrow. They're like, you're not trying tomorrow. You're done. This is like, you're done. Yeah. Like, there's no knee, bro. No knee. No ligaments in the knee.
The flow.
But that's the weird part. And this is recorded. You can go and watch this on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to leave a link. This is physiologically not possible, or nobody thought it was. So he comes back the next day. They brought it a little closer, but by like a couple of feet, not by a lot.
Yeah.
He goes up with that injury.
Yeah.
That's 2 months in recovery minimum.
Mm-hmm.
He goes up the next day, goes over it, lands it.
Yeah.
No doctor can explain how that knee took that. In that condition, nobody can explain how that knee took that. There's no way.
Yeah.
But then he goes back up. He's like, wait. He goes back up. He does it again, and he backflips.
What?
Yes. And he lands it again, and he does it 3 more times.
Wow.
So he's saying, I'm not sure there's an upper limit to this.
So
for real.
Full mind over matter once you reach a certain
full.
flow.
He's saying, I don't know if he's going as far as like we can fly. I don't know. He's not saying that in the book, but it seems like he's kind
of the quantum field. Like I feel like that's exactly what it is. If you're completely connected to your observation and you're almost controlling it with just being present, I feel like that's why serendipities happen. Things like we were just talking about something earlier off camera. Like there's things that happen that when you're in a certain state, they just happen unexplainably. And then when they happen enough times, you just go, of course. Like, and that's exactly like what, like for me, like how I was saying spaceships earlier, like building the spaceship, like all those things are secondary to the vehicle that is being on stage for me is an ability to just get to that flow state. Like I have a secondary, this is so random, but I have a secondary way of reaching flow state, like in the off time.
Masturbation?
I like, yeah. So that's it. No, I'm a competitive in my head. I'm a competitive Call of Duty player. I quick scope and there's this state you can find, and it's always like a constant practice to like find it, and then it's just like 50 kills in a game or whatever, and you go for it. But like finding these flow states, I think the flow state is a direct correlation to collapsing the quantum field to your will. Like
interesting. So the wave function collapse in that moment. To anybody who doesn't know, and I'm sure that most listeners probably know, but so the wave function collapse in physics is essentially this idea that every event, every particle is essentially a statistical probability of the particle being in this general region.
Superposition.
That's not actually superposition. So superposition is two instances of the particle existing at the same time, and then they transfer information.
It becomes.
But then superposition collapse. So right, superposition can collapse into one particle. That is correct. But anyways, the reason I'm outlining this is just so you kind of know what I'm talking about here. So essentially, a wave function collapse is when it interacts with any other part of matter. If you believe in the multiverse, hypothesis, then it chooses one universe to be in. But there's different interpretations to this observation. But essentially, it then chooses the wave function collapses into this one instance of that particle. So what you're saying is that you think that flow state might be this wave function collapse that somehow, like, you are in some way linked with the other event, or you literally become kind of like one with the event, like in your mind?
I think it's closing the gap. When you get into flow state like that and your electrical firings are just so direct with your, like, instead of the background noise that is so much energy, like your consciousness is really this cloud of energy inside of your brain, and it becomes more pointed when you are in a flow state. And so I like to think of when you're getting into flow state, it's like
entanglement is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're entangled with the event.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah, it's affecting the event. So this is a good example. So right here is a glass. Let's say I'm just going to outline this concept. So basically, there's a glass here. The glass is there because I see it there, I feel it there. I know it's there from just a moment ago. I have all of my five senses, or six or whatever, knowing that it's here, and that is telling my brain that it's there. So in this moment, I know it to be there. But also, let's say this new moment, it's constantly ticking, and in this new moment, I know the glass is there. And in that same instance, me knowing it there, let's say it created it to be there because of my ultimate knowing. I know this glass is here. So let's say that's...
So your conviction of being there, being there?
So let's have two scenarios. In scenario A, I believe there to be this glass here, so therefore it exists. Scenario B, there's a glass here, and I'm absorbing that information, so now it exists. I would hypothesize that those two instances are the same thing. They are entangled. The act of knowing creates it, and its being there creates the act of knowing. And they are not separate. And when you get into a state of flow, and this is all hypothesis, but when you get into a state of flow, you close the gap of your awareness to the reality around you to the point where you actually start affecting the reality for others to see. Or for it to just become. And the concept of others seeing, that's what gets really weird with...
The concept of what? Sorry?
The concept of other people's awarenesses is when it can get really interesting. Like, I always kind of struggled with the concept of, okay, so if I'm manifesting this and it makes this thing appear now, like I'm thinking of an elephant and all of a sudden an elephant walks in the room, or for some reason, like things like this have happened. And
it happened to you?
I mean, yeah, actually. So, well, more vaguely than that, but let's you think of something and it manifests and shows itself. I was always curious, how is that affecting other people's reality if it's happening for me or by me? And that's where the concept of the multiverse becomes handy, where a version of you and a version of me are experiencing things, and only these versions for a moment in this instance line up as we pass by and go into multiple realities. And let's say there's infinite all realities for my life and for your life. And there's this sliver for this moment and this sliver for yours, and they cross in that moment. And our observations, our consciousness is constantly skipping between timelines. And that's what we experience as an observer, is jumping between different multiverses. And there's another bubble, another observer consciousness doing the same thing next to you. And you only cross in moments, in versions of yourself that are crossing. And in the infinite different consciousnesses that are you, flying through all the infinite different positions. And that's what your life is. Maybe.
Drugs. No, that's physics.
Physics. You make drugs with physics.
That is true.
I guess that's where you get into chemistry.
Yeah. And you make physics with drugs. So.
That's true. I mean, that's...
No. I really like this. I actually thought about something very similar. And I actually think that some interpretations in physics actually are very close to exactly this. And in fact, the way that quantum computers work, to the extent that I understand it, is very similar to this, which is the decoherence and the entanglement of particles. And then essentially you stop and start the process of a particle becoming part of the multiverse and then becoming back a part of this only universe. And in that time, in a very dumbed down version, it essentially collects the statistics of its own existence.
Of its own reality.
Yeah, and then use that statistical property to then analyze certain things that are more or less probable.
To gain access to knowledge of this universe that's only encoded in the inherent universe and universe space that it exists in.
But that's interesting because I don't... It's probably not even... It probably doesn't even matter that much, but because I agree with you almost entirely. I think that just the distinction between the first instance and the second instance as like describing them as different. And just to remind everybody, the first one is that in which there's either a glass for real and then you perceive it. And the other one is, well, when you see it, then it becomes a glass. Well, in the first one, it becomes a glass for you. Mm-hmm. But in the second one, it becomes a glass completely, and without you, it's not a glass. So like, but I think the difference between those two, I feel like I agree with you, but I do just the way that I would describe it is that I think that I actually don't know. I think it's hard to say. I think that there's not at the moment there's not really a way to tell. And actually, I think in principle, I don't think there's a way to tell which one of those would be the correct one, because you would have to be outside the universe to see it.
Yeah, you'd have to be able to see.
But I think that there's definitely something to how your consciousness interacts with the glass. So I keep making this analogy for musicians, and nobody seems to be biting. And I don't know if it's because to them it just sounds like, what are you saying, dude? We're just playing music. Or they just don't fully understand what I'm saying because I'm probably not explaining it properly. But essentially, it's like, I know I repeated this on this podcast a few times at least, so I'll do it again, but see what you think about it. So essentially, it's because I film musicians a lot. I noticed there's this thing where, musician one side of the room would play something, and he would have his eyes closed or her eyes closed, and they would do something musically that somebody on the other side of the room who's playing with them would see it in their mind's eye, and they would go like they would see it, right?
Yeah.
So now it sounds pretty, again, it's pretty banal. Like it's like, what are you talking about? Like, right? It's just like they heard the music, right? Yeah, but it illustrates something to me, which is that the information in the music itself carried itself through the room.
It's a direct communication.
But that's a medium. So there's something in the frequency itself, in the way the music is, that communicated something to the other person that they saw. Like they're on the same channel.
Yeah.
And that actually made me think that maybe music is a thing that its potential exists constantly. Like the octaves and the what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for?
Timbre?
No. When something sounds really good, like it's a
chord?
Harmonics. Harmonics, yes, thank you. Those things exist. They're almost like building blocks. And then what musicians can do is they can combine them into things, and they make them alive for other people who can't do it. And that's why music is so mesmerizing. Now, it sounds like I'm just romanticizing the idea, but no. In my claim, I'm saying no. This is not like a poetic idea for me. I'm saying, what if that's how it is? And in fact, then you can extrapolate it forward. That's what made me think of this. According to what you were saying, what if everything is like this? What if it's not just the music? Yeah. What if the building blocks of everything you see is like this?
Yeah.
It's the harmonics of...
Well, that's what's interesting about musicians is they learn the language of frequency modulation. The modulation of frequencies. So to change the pitch of frequencies and to combine them and see how their waves interact in phase or out of phase, creating standing waves and other artifacting that causes different drawings and pictures. So... It's really interesting you say that, because actually earlier today I was listening to a song a song I was like, I kind of want to cover this song, and I was listening to it and I hear him play it, and I've gotten to a point now with my understanding of this language, which has been really exciting actually to see, because I'm so in it all the time. And now to like see the fruits of this study come up is I was listening to the song and he's playing a solo and I just watch him play it. I'm not watching him, but I watch him play it in my head. As once I find the key on the guitar, I know the language, and he's playing it on the guitar, that I just see it, and then I can just go play it. And that's what's crazy. Like, it is crazy. Like, I can listen to a song now because I've learned the language so much that I'll listen to someone play a solo, and I'll just be like, oh, that was cool. I liked how you went down that fret on that there. And
you heard him say it musically, and then you can reiterate.
And then you
what
extrapolate.
He said.
It's a form of language that is applied. What's cool is using the medium of your instrument as a visual representation. This is really interesting. American mathematics versus Japanese mathematics. The way we teach our children.
What are you talking about?
Yes, stay with me. So if in America you do let's say you're doing plus or multiplication, then you have like the division with that weird little thing, and you have these like weird extrapolated ways to add, subtract, divide, and multiply, whatever. In Japan, they use abacus.
Right.
And when
it's those giant schools where they learn how to
with the beads. So in Japan, you have to learn abacus. In mathematics, you use abacus. It's a physical object. It's like these sticks with beads on them, and you learn to calculate with it. It's like 1 + 1 = this, and you can see it physically. And
so it's more analog, actually.
Well, it is. It's an analog calculator. It's calculators before calculators. But what's cool about it is since it's a visual it's a physical 3-dimensional model of mathematics. These kids, they can take like, let's say it's like 500,000 times 6.359 or whatever. They can do it in like 2 seconds because they see it like their instrument in music. They see the fretboard of it. They see the abacus and they go click, 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 click. And then they just count the beads because it's a physical 3-dimensional manifestation in their head.
And the visual space it can communicate way more information at once. Like an image can communicate.
Tangible. And that's so it's really, you should look into it after this. Look up Japanese kids.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about this with Peter Rollins when we had the podcast because we were talking about Daniel Tammet, the guy with the crazy ability in math, and how they wanted to test that it's not something like this that is doing. So there's two ideas here that you mentioned that Terence McKenna once talked about. One of them is that it might be the case that the world is that the visual field might not actually be just a human or an earth-oriented perception, but there's something about the visual field, the interaction with light that operates on the visual spectrum that might actually be core quality of the world. Like the world wants to be seen, and that's why when you do psychedelics you see information because there's something about even that space that wants to be seen because there's something about it that is actually much more fundamental than we think. It's not just ours kind of thing.
Well, and it's sound is a medium of the air, right? And air has like depending on its viscosity and the pressure and the temperature, has a certain speed at which it can travel. Like you can, it transmits waves through it. There's a maximum speed. It's the speed of sound. The speed of light is the maximum sound of our universe. In which, like, if you start
the maximum causation wave that can be transferred through the medium of space-time.
Yeah, through the medium of space-time. So what's interesting is light itself doesn't experience time or acceleration or anything. It doesn't. If you were a light particle, it'd be the beginning and the end of the universe right now.
Constantly.
It doesn't experience time. So maybe what's interesting is the connection from our ears to the sound waves. We're connected to a physical medium here, but our connection of eyes to light is our direct connection to something that does not experience time.
That's interesting. That is actually a very interesting thought. Because the other thought that I wanted to say by Terence McKenna was that people really obsessing about the potential, the prospects of us developing some telepathic abilities, either through tools or just somehow, supernaturally.
Elon's on it, dude.
Yeah, for sure. But that's way before. But he said what people don't realize, that we already possess a form of telepathy. It's just that the medium is air. Because if you think about how language works, it's just that I make pressure waves of the air in a very particular way, and you then reinterpret it, and then you have my thought. Or that is telepathy.
Crazy. Yeah.
But that's what it, but I think what people are missing here is that they just take it for granted, but they don't ask themselves, where is it that you're perceiving this? The mind space, like where is that place from which you're actually perceiving all
Point
that
at
stuff?
it, yeah.
Yeah. So that, and actually there's another small story I want to tell you that I wanted to tie to this idea, which is that I have a good friend, Daniel, who was quite a known musician in England, and he's I think you met him briefly. He came to the first festival, Daniel Bedingfield, and he really is, as far as music is concerned, he's a musical genius. Like it's what he can do on the fly is just unbelievable. And his biggest hit, I think, as far as he wouldn't consider it his biggest because it's not his favorite thing, but I think the most famous thing that he ever made that went really big, I think it went platinum, was "I Gotta Get Through This" from I think 2000 from Britain. I gotta get through this. Anyways. Okay. Yeah. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I only recently read an article about him it just came out recently because he's coming up with this new technology, so they kind of made a story about him. And what I didn't know is that he came up with the rhythm for that from skating to work or something in England, and when he was going on the bridge or something, the way that it was hitting the skates were hitting the pavement and the metal parts. It had like dun, 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 and it's like, oh
wow.
And then he made this into so he literally heard it.
Yeah.
Now the question is, was this like a little hint message from somebody?
For sure, of course it was.
Well, I don't know, or maybe he manifested.
Everything
he took
is,
something.
Man.
Well, he took something and he, we're the bridge. Like he made it into something that then people consumed and really enjoyed.
Pattern recognition. It is our.
But not all patterns are created equal. And not all of them are as great as others. And that's my point. Like to know to discern between what is great and what is not great.
Yeah.
I think that's at the end, that's the thing that determines if we want to interact with it or not.
Well, it's a good analogy is like a higher complexity of patterns. Let's say I drew a triangle or I made a rhythm through fourth dimensions as opposed to two-dimensional, like time dimensions. So a song, boop, 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 where I draw a triangle. Those are patterns. But also a pattern is, let's say I wrote a computer program and that is just a pattern as well, but that pattern does something else. And they're all spells that we cast in different specific ways, but they're all, when you're working with first principles, it comes down to they're all just patterns and they all have their specific actions and everything is a pattern. So certain things work in certain ways. It's like a program you run. Every time you create something, you're running a program. Like right now, we're creating a pattern by, like we were talking about with the words, we communicate telepathy, like my vocal cords vibrate and now it vibrates this diaphragm. Electricity moves through this cable, it goes into the thing into here. The light goes into there and now it goes through these servers, fiber optics under the ocean and to whoever's watching right now. And that communication is telepathy, but what is being communicated is a pattern. Meaning through these patterns. And the medium in flow state becomes secondary.
Interesting. So it's pure meaning.
The closest you can get to pure meaning is what technology is for.
So it removes the middleman.
Well, the more and more we advance, the more we tend to remove the middleman. We make it easier. We have these mics now, these dynamic mics with nice preamps that aren't noisy, and we have high quality recording to transfer information. You get it on your phone. It's instant. It's quick. And a lot of it can look like to make things easier. Technology can be passed off as, it's just to convenience our lives, which in a way, yeah, but also in another way, the ultimate state is joy and communication and feeling of love with people around us. And we, I think, inherently chase that through technology, and these things make that medium less and less viscous to transfer meaning across.
And that's also why it seems that time accelerates on it. Mm. Yeah. That's a really interesting thought. I like that. And Stephen Wolfram, with his latest theory of this hypergraph that he came out a couple of years ago.
Hypergraph.
Yeah, okay. And essentially in it, the main claim is that the universe is actually computational, and time is described in this hypergraph as computational steps. So in our universe, so the hypergraph is this graph of nodes that develops according to certain types of rules. Mm-hmm. So it's through cellular automata you can show that. And for example, the game of life or Conway is like one type of cellular automata, but you have a lot of different kinds, and different rules will give rise to different kinds of structures that arise. Some of them just breaks down, some of them remain, some of them become static, some of them, there's infinite possibilities. But according to that, what's interesting about it is that I think rule 110, I forget the number of it, but I think it's 110, somehow develops into, if you run it, you run into, without coming up with, you run into patterns that point to special relativity, to like Einstein's field equations. Mm-hmm. It runs into string theory, and like without you doing anything else. It's almost like it's showing our world. So it's almost like rule 110 might actually be the rule that gives rise to a universe like ours.
Interesting.
And actually, you can. I don't know if it's already been sold, but I think it was been. I don't know if it's being sold already, but there was actually a talk with what's his face, CEO of Cardano.
I'm not sure.
David Hutchins. I forget his name. Anyways, terrible with names.
Me too.
Yeah. But anyways, he was talking with Wolfram about creating NFTs and like a whole world. And I wonder if somebody can. I think Lex Friedman was talking about like buying Rule 110. So it's like you buying our world, like it.
There's a set of rules they input into this neural network that plays it out.
It's not even neural network. It's essentially, how the game of life works.
It's like these. It's a computer program where it develops and happens. And
exactly.
You set the rules, right?
Yeah. So this is one form of something called cellular automata, which is a whole array of those possibilities, right? And with different rules. And if you run all the different kinds of rules, you get different types of things that occur. But also you can start with different types of rules. So if I understand it correctly, there's also a way to... So the hypergraph is essentially the set of the development of all the possible ways in which those nodes can develop. And in this hypergraph, it gives rise one of the nodes trajectories in one of the branches that keeps branching out. Looks like our universe, but there's also other parts of it. Now, in that space, time is measured by computational steps. And the more branching out you have more computational steps at any given time that occur at the same time. So our universe or our multiverse essentially is one of those branches. And we perceive it as time. But if you look at the hypergraph, it's computational steps. And that makes a lot of sense because, but they prove it mathematically. They actually have a very,
it's like
a
video
team of
frames
brilliant.
are the way we interact.
What it means is that the reason that, according to it, the more computational steps you have, you literally have more time passing. And if you notice, like the rate of change of something in any corner of the universe is really determined by the number of computational steps you can take in any given moment. According to some, limitations like
and
the speed of light.
And that would be adjusted by the speed of light and also gravitation in the area.
Which is the fastest you can go through the hypergraph. But then something more interesting. Hypergraph sits, according to that theory, on something called the Ruhlian space. And the Ruhlian space is essentially the space of all the possible rules by which those hypergraphs develop.
Oh, interesting.
So essentially, if you run, would be the
you
ultimate.
run it backwards.
No. It's almost like we are one branch on the hypergraph. Hypergraph is one branch on the Ruhlian space.
Oh, okay.
And it looks exactly like the hypergraph, only it represents the sets of all possible rules. And then you're correct. You run it back and then you see what would be the ultimate rule that would give rise to all the rules.
Oh, interesting.
Because you can't go beyond that.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the one possible rule that will give rise to all the possible rules? And then what you do is you also update the hypergraph according to the rule that it creates in the moment. In other words, imagine the game of life, only in every step of the computation, you don't stay with the same 4 basic rules, but every new state gives rise to a new set of possible rules that then updates the system, and then that's how it develops into this random.
That's how AI was born.
Yeah. And this is an interesting idea. I think it was Eric Weinstein that said that, and this is a very deep thought for me, which is we are that AI. Like if you ask yourself, what would it require for a computer to actually become conscious? It's like, well, that's what it requires. It requires the entire evolution of the Earth to get to us to then develop those tools.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what's happening. It's not like we're going to give rise to the AI. We are it. It's just that this is another tool AI is developing.
I mean, if you look at your phone, we're
the self-aware thing.
Yeah, and we're evolved we're now cyborgs. It may not be glued to us, but it essentially is. Like
we're
on the path to this.
No. And this is the deep part of the point, which is it's a little easy to miss because it's right on the surface. So the deep part of it is that it's not like we're on our way to become it. Is that we are it. So imagine if right now you're creating the first rudimentary unit in a computer that can be conscious.
Okay.
And then you let it run, right? And then you ask yourself, because we don't know, does it need a certain time to develop to a certain level of consciousness? Not intelligence, consciousness, awareness of the world.
Yeah.
Or does it become conscious instantly? Is there like a magic formula? What's the deal? We don't know.
Does the processing power affect it? What are the variables?
So what he's suggesting is that, well, we have the answer. It takes at least biological, so computational principles, they exist in nature. It's not like they just exist in computers. Just utilize it electronically, so you can see it in a faster rate of change. Computational steps.
Yeah.
But the computational principles are embedded in nature itself. You can do computation with waves of the ocean. It would just take forever, right? Anything that can transfer a signal.
Rocks and sticks. I mean, it's just a complex version of that.
So what he's saying is that it's just like that thing that you think about of that next like AI in the computer. Those first like single cell creatures were that first AI.
Oh, for sure.
Just on a. And they are now. That's how long it took for it to figure out how to create a shape that allows it to build the next thing.
Next complex shape.
But it's been it the whole time.
We're it.
That's
and it's how we are in the middle of it becoming that, and we are it. Like it's
just the next. So the thing that we imagine to be the AGI, the thing that we imagine to be like the thing that can calculate like thousands of years of whatever history happened in like a day, and then us maybe joining it or writing it or might destroy us. That thing we think about, it's just the next step of our evolution.
Oh, for sure. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And also it comes down to this as well, like what it is and what we are. It comes down to quantifying what it is. Like it's also like what we were talking about with the cup here. Like,
quantifying sorry, go ahead.
Quantifying. So like this is one unit. It's the act of quantifying a unit. That's something I find really interesting is
saying what is it a unit of?
Well, saying that it is a unit, the act of quantifying something, like we were talking about with this glass being here and there's situation A and situation B, where I see the cup, it's in my mind now because I saw it, or it's in my mind, so now it's there. The act of quantifying that it's a cup there, the quantification of that is the answer. That's why it's quantum physics, because we're trying to the act of the quantifying is, and the units in this situation, these creating the units and going backwards to like breaking down our walls of what units are. Like, I think it's what assumptions are we operating on? That's why I love first principles. I figured out that this was a thing. I've been doing it for a long time, but Elon Musk talks about it, and it's breaking things down to its constituent parts and essentially using that information to build off of, so you can get rid of as many assumptions as possible and then go up from there. And we are in a very complex time now with computers where it's just like there's so many advanced things that like you really need to specialize in the instrument and the medium to get to a point where you can actually understand the patterns and the quantification.
Wait, are you saying that?
Yeah, these mics sound so, it's fun to listen to.
Great, man.
I like listening. I like the headphones makes it like, whoa,
man.
Whoa, man. Where were we?
Very white. So
the universe.
So actually, it's really interesting. I don't know if you meant to say it this way, but what I heard you say is that essentially quantum physics is called quantum physics because you have essentially a quantized property to the fundamental particles, which is they either exist or they don't. They don't have any more breakdownable. They can't exist in a
smaller state.
In a smaller state, like they either exist or they don't, and those are excitations in the quantum fields.
Well, it's also speed and location.
No, for sure. So I actually made this mistake in the last podcast. It's like, but and spin, right? Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that what I hear you saying, so velocity and speed, and
quirky.
Quirky?
Oh
yeah. No, do you know how they call quarks? It's a really funny story that I don't remember the details, so I won't tell it.
Okay,
but I'll tell you later. But I remember it's really funny.
Okay.
Anyways,
I'll take your word.
So what I heard you saying is that it's also called quantum physics, which I love, because we're essentially finding the smallest unit to quantify. Mm-hmm. We're deciding what is that unit, and it seems like we kind of hit bedrock, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily hit bedrock. We might find a deeper bedrock, and the bedrock might actually take a different shape. It might be, as far as I can tell, we will probably start understanding what the mind is made out of. Like for me, it's very clear that the mind has to be made out of something, like not the brain, but the mind.
Yeah, the mind.
And it has to have some components, which probably not going to go in that rabbit hole because it's like a whole hour conversation. But I will only say shortly that, the hard problem of consciousness, which you know what it is, right? It's essentially the
I have no idea what it is.
Okay. So the hard problem of consciousness in a nutshell is that there's always this explanatory gap between what we see the brain doing and we see the correlation between what happens to us internally. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, you can never make that jump between this correlation and the explanation of how exactly one transforms into the other, how exactly the electrical cracklings in your brain becomes your experience. Mm-hmm. That's the hard problem of consciousness, which the reason it's called the hard problem of consciousness because it seems to be in principle, hard in the sense that it seems to be in principle unanswerable. Because the thing that you're trying to map it onto is the thing you're using to try and map it onto. Yeah. So it's like it's the ultimate snake that bites its own tail. It's like you can't. Yeah. How do you go about it, right? Even figuring out how to go about it seems impossible. Therefore, it's called the hard problem of consciousness. Yeah. So, but what I'm having a hard time with is scientists who study this. Like some scientists who like devote their lives to this. Like, clearly super intelligent people, and they don't seem to see a problem there. They're like, well, I don't see the problem. Like, the brain does this. That's what happens in the world. But like, okay, great. You described this, the state of affairs, but you didn't provide an explanation for how it happens.
Yeah.
So you just kind of brush it off. And that to me is like
Well, I don't think you can quantify something so complex in a short enough amount of time of words that the way we use language, I feel like, is it would.
You're saying it's not Englishable.
It's not. I think it's not Englishable in one lifetime necessarily.
Sure, but they don't seem to. No, they seem to brush it off completely. Like not in a way of like, well, we're not gonna figure it out now. No, they seem to say, I don't see the problem. Like I don't see a thing to be studied here.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's just my own little.
Totally. Well, I think that the space between consciousness and, I mean, it's like trying to see something in the dark. Like it's like trying to look at your own eyes. Like at a certain point.
That's why it's the hard problem.
Yeah, I think it's like you can't. Which your eyes are a part of your brain, which I always found really interesting. Like
it is very interesting. It's not a part of my brain though.
No,
I have them attached to my ankles.
Yeah, yeah. The end. No, just kidding.
We just end the episode. It's just when episode ends. What happened?
You actually would increase your viewer retention if you end videos like that. I saw that recently.
Because they get annoyed.
No, yeah, they're like, wow, I'm over this. No, if there's this guy on YouTube I watch who his algorithm is cranked because he perfectly gets his thumbnails right, he gets all the stuff, but he actually ends his videos like, and that's it, and it just ends, and so it says that we watched it till the end, and so everyone watched it till the end.
Interesting, because there's no like thing, there's no like slow closure.
And that was that, and
I have a little music that come up. It's kind of like a hint that we're about to close.
Oh, okay, yeah,
which I always found very rude in shows, but I found it very useful
it's turning up right
because
now.
it's like slowly going up. It's like
that's like, oh my god, that's like the Oscars. Like when there's like that dude. I thought it was hilarious. I was watching the Oscars yesterday, and besides all the Will Smithy shit, there was this person that was talking on stage, and then the music starts arising, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and they have to get off. I thought it was so funny when the deaf guy goes on. I was like, I hope they put the music on because he can't hear it. But yeah, that was.
Do you want to say a couple words about the Will Smith? That doesn't really.
He's operating on a territorial thing, and I thought it was an interesting representation of where we are still as humans, and I thought it was really good because it's not like I disagree with anything he did or anything he said, but we hope to be better than this, but it's where we're at, and it's like interesting, and it's a good reflection.
But you don't think that the context is him he should know where he's at and who he is?
Well, the context is complicated because I'm sure he had a couple of glasses of something, and also he's
clearly going through something. For me, there's only two possibilities. I don't mean to hijack your version of this, but to me, there's only two possibilities. One that is staged, which I wouldn't pass it by them, because honestly, the thing that actually puts it over the top for me is the fact that if you look at the thing the way it happened, forget about the fact that he laughed, and then that can actually be explained by the fact that he all of a sudden got outraged that his wife is outraged. I get that.
Yeah.
But the way that he came, Chris Rock literally put his chin forward. Look again.
Really?
Literally.
Interesting.
And he put his mic behind his back. Now, you can explain it another way, but also when he slapped him, why did the mic go poof?
Oh.
It's almost like they planned it, and he needed. That's why he put it behind his back. To do this.
I wouldn't put it off because we're talking about it right now, and that's exactly.
No. They achieved what they needed. So that's one version, right?
Totally.
But I have nothing resting on it. If it's not, then clearly Will is going through something very major, which I fully understand.
Well, also to reference, if you look back at the 2016, I think it's 2016
when Chris Rock made fun of her.
He made fun of her then, and he.
What did he say about her then?
He said, I don't really know.
Was it like really, really kind of digging deep or something?
I think it was a dig at her, and then
because this joke wasn't that bad.
Well,
it just wasn't funny, but it wasn't. I mean,
yeah. Well, I would think that Will Smith never let that go.
Got it. Okay, so it was already building up since then.
So he never let that go, and he was just annoyed. But he was like, "Oh, God damn it, you asshole!" And it changed his framing of this person. So when this person came on stage, my thought process would be he goes through. In his head, maybe a disgust to start with. And then the laughing would have been like, I'm just laughing along because I'm right up front and I'm on camera. He sees that, and then it triggers this whole thought memory. Like the way we think as humans is we run through, and when you run through a thought pattern, these lipids appear around around the cells in that pattern, these like insulating layers of fat around those specific patterns. And that's why we run these programs in certain ways. So I'm sure he's been building up this program for a long time, about probably stacked with other things with it.
So he has a whole neural connection network about that.
So I think it became, this is just hypothesis or theory, but when...
Oh, I thought you knew it for sure.
Oh yeah, I do know. But so when he did this, I think when he saw it, it was triggered that, and it triggered a chain of events which caused like a direct lightning strike to this thing. And with any alcohol involved.
Yeah, no. He clearly is going. I mean, the tears were slightly crazy. Like it was like
sure.
almost demented like level when he was crying. It was. I get it. Like I get it. Like it's Hollywood. They're actors. They're very sensitive people.
Yeah.
I get it. But there's a certain this, and again, it's very easy to judge after hearing all the people talking about it. I'm like. You can't like it's so hard. It's so easy to judge. It's like it's so easy to judge when you're not that person in that moment.
Yeah. And we jump to questioning of character, but we've all done stupid stuff. And it's like when cameras are on and millions of people are watching, like how many people were thinking about that?
Actually, that point, I would say, if that's the argument, that I would say he's completely at fault because he's been in the game for so long and he knows who he is.
Totally.
That's
which is
just
where it seems like it could be staged.
Yeah.
But also, what I find most interesting is what's more exciting to us and everybody, it seems, is to question our perception of this character, as opposed to even acknowledge. I mean, people end up getting to it, but to acknowledge Chris Rock, like what the hell is going through his mind? What is he going?
First of all, it's really embarrassing, but also like he handled it pretty well.
He nailed it, but also like. I'm sure he like you shouldn't have pulled that joke out, but also maybe like
I don't know if it was that bad. I honestly don't agree.
Well, the last time he hosted, he said this exact thing, and I guess he.
Wait, what do you mean?
The last time he was hosting at the Oscars,
the exact same thing.
Well, he did a dig at her, and Will Smith didn't like it.
Oh, I see.
And it was clear, and I don't know if they had a communication or what. And there's things going behind it.
Oh, so you made a joke about her.
He made a joke about her. And so I think he was waiting for that to happen. And he was like, God damn it, this guy's doing it again. And he made the dig again. And then he saw.
No, I get it.
This is so
I have no actual judgment of his character. I think I totally understand we're all humans. I just think that, and actually a friend of mine posted something I didn't think about, but I was like, that would be a boss fucking move. He said, I totally like, and again, this is not to say that, it's like, he's like, what if he would do this? Obviously, it's very easy to analyze after the fact and not being the person. But he said, what if he would just go up to him and whisper in his ear, like, hey, man, like, I know you're doing your job, but my wife has a condition that she's really sensitive about. Would you mind not continue with this line of jokes? Yeah. Really appreciated. Nobody would know any different. It would stay between us. Do you mind, man to man?
Yeah.
And just walk off.
Yeah.
That would be such a boss move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but in the heat of those moments.
Yeah.
And that's where I hope that we evolve to. And it's like seeing things like war in Ukraine and things like this happening still right now.
That is crazy.
It's interesting to think because we feel we're past these things a lot. Like in a state of peace and comfort in which we are in the most comfortable time of ever, probably, unless there were like existences before us of humans that had really comfortable living that we don't know about because history wiped itself or something, and it was all in phones and all the phones are gone or something. But
the history was in phones. Phones, folks.
Phones, folks. We believe that in these states of comfort, it's easy to see the big picture. But in a state of distress like that, our brainstem reacts, and our reptilian mind and our monkeyness just goes bam, and you get into it and so it's. I think what's the biggest takeaway from it is on a mainstream level, we got to see a reminder of, we're all still kids and we can't forget that. And we need to give ourselves some more time.
So that's interesting because I've been saying this to a few people recently that I have a strong sense. It's almost like an intuition of mine that this instance is the last hiccup of this archaic way of doing things. And I feel like this is a test for all of us as a world, how we handle that. And the way we're going to handle that is going to determine completely whether we're going to have more of this for another 100 years in different forms because we allowed for it, or that's it because we put our foot down. Now, obviously, that sounds like a very...
Ukraine, right?
Yeah, like how we respond to Putin, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously this is like a super oversimplified version, and the real situation is like crazy complex because of nuclear weapons, because of there's a lot involved here, right? So it's not like I don't understand the complexity of the situation, but I'm saying that in the most broad stroke you can possibly imagine, I feel like just like you have a personal life and you have, I feel like a person's life mimics the trajectory of civilization. And like you said, we're kids, but I feel like we're now becoming young adults, in which we kind of start to understand responsibility. We start to understand our place in the universe, or at least we want to pick a career in the universe of what we're going to be in the universe, right? We start to kind of like looking for other places to live, right? All that stuff. And we start
moving to our own house.
Yeah. and we start to like, because we were teenagers this whole time, in which we fought wars, and it's just about drugs and sex and rock and roll and whatever. And now we're starting to understand the responsibility that we're going to have to kind of adopt, right? Side note, again, I always say this, and this, I think I also made this point in the previous podcast, but side note that I think that also there's actual adults looking from above, but that's a separate thing.
I feel like I've met them.
Yeah, I feel like I met them too. But as far as we're concerned, I feel like this is a real like pivotal moment for us. And I think that we are all collectively experiencing in our personal lives what our civilization is experiencing right now, those vibrations of like of turmoil that is there to either test us, or it's essentially those things that will determine whether we become interplanetary. And I'm sure that later on there's also like a bigger test to see if we can become cross galaxies civilization.
Interdimensional.
So, but interdimensional. What I feel is that we are now entering a stage in which we have to make like hard decisions, but I think it expresses itself in our personal lives. And so to me, that was, and it's interesting that then in his speech, Will Smith said that Denzel Washington told him, when you're at the top, the devil comes for you. That really resonates. I don't know if you meant it, metaphorically or actually, but it's very true. Like when you get to the top, there's always this something is trying to steal your joy.
Power corrupts completely. Is that what it? Or
power corrupts. Complete power corrupts completely.
No, it's power. Something completely.
Power corrupts. Complete power corrupts completely, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a different
Lord
word.
of the Rings, right?
Yeah, and yeah.
No, but I really, to me, that ties personal responsibility with events in the world. And I feel like now, because we have the ability to see everything like immediately, it really becomes more of a reality than a metaphor. And imagine when you get into a place of like Neuralink and like, the medium becomes much more like you actually become part of it.
The medium becomes less viscous.
But I really I really think that that's a really good, I don't even think it's an analogy. I think you're spot on. What it made me think also about is like, Yuval Noah Harari, the guy who wrote Sapiens and Homo Deus. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's this really big Israeli thinker and brilliant guy. And he in his book, I don't remember if it was the first one or the second one, it doesn't matter. It might be in both. He outlines this idea that the wars, the way we knew them, like hot wars, simply are no longer plausible. It doesn't mean they won't happen, which clearly they do, but they're less plausible because wars are always fought over resources of some sort. So even if people say it's about power, okay, but that's ultimately about resources, about access to resources. And what his claim is that now the main resource is not materials, but knowledge, because knowledge would give you all the other things. And because of that, his hypothesis was, it doesn't make sense to kill people because you're killing a possibility for knowledge. But we can see here where we can still see the seeking of power for the sake of power. And that is the archaic thing about it.
Totally.
It's not that he's just trying to take over. It's the fact that the reason he's doing it is purely
for power,
megalomaniacal, I just need this power.
Well, I feel like something that's happening too is our awareness of what power is shifting, especially with the Trump situation, before the Corona situation, now the war situation. Always something happening. But I feel like there is this, what power is to us is what needs to shift. Putting people in power that shouldn't be in power. And what is power? First of all, breaking that down to its constituent parts. What is power? and who do we want to put there, and how do we choose who goes there, I think is the action. Because this thing with Putin, it's like this person, like I know like a lot of people in Russia, probably most people in Russia don't want to, I don't know this, but seems like they don't give a shit about it like he does, taking this space.
No, that's totally a Putin thing, not necessarily a Russian thing.
Yeah, so it's like quantifying what power is, first of all, and then finding better ways to put people in those states, in those positions of power, because that's what shifts our societies. That action, I think, is where our next step into adolescence of a species becomes. When our adulthood is when we find ways to put people in power, really clever ways to put people in power that we trust. And I think that actually will have something to do with AI in some way, because an inherent intelligence, in ways we will not know until it happens, will actually affect that and affect our world. Because like the way things move, we still have barely an understanding. And we need to put people in power that have just a little more understanding than we do. Like, let's say if Elon Musk could be like the dude of the world, like I would be like, yes,
100%, because you see his mission statement by what he does.
Yeah, and it's action over words, and there's a perfect example of Trump. I'm not for nor against it. I am neutral. I'm Switzerland on this with Trump, but he is it's so words. It's so much words, and it's like how it's not so much action. I don't even know what his action was because it was just so diluted with words. So finding ways to put people in power that are mostly action. And it's like, I feel like Elon Musk would be wasted in positions of power almost, because his and I think he knows that. Like,
well, I think his position of power is what he creates. I think power is the ability to influence things to happen, essentially.
Yeah, as opposed to like being the leader.
So David Deutsch has this idea that knowledge is information that can do work. But then he also has this idea that the best possible conceivable political system is one that doesn't necessarily aims at better leaders, but aims at a better functional infrastructure of itself, in which it allows for a quicker error correction. And in the political sphere, it would translate to being able to remove bad leaders quicker.
Yeah.
And to allow bad ideas to die faster. And now, laws, the things that are written into laws are never written out of law. So that's a broken system. Like that's a system,
a self-healing component to it.
It's an error correction system. So like all things, because he builds it into like a larger theory about the universe itself, but he shows how it manifests itself in everything. And that's why, because essentially it's all the things that develop there around informational patterns that are called knowledge, that essentially information that can do work, like the knowledge inside your genes, inside the DNA, that can construct the body. So it literally knows how to do work.
Yeah.
Information in your brain knows how to manifest music.
Yeah.
Information in this building, there's information embedded in the walls
to turn
in
on
the angles and in the way that it's constructed.
Information. It's like the pyramids is a good example. Like the pyramids
everything.
is a good example.
Any structure.
Well, like in the pyramids, it's the exact shape and dimensions tell you the exact shape and dimensions of the Earth. Like it's written into the shape and size of the pyramids.
So it's an analogy to how we see something else is constructed. So you can have but the reason he ties it to something very functional, which is that if we don't understand and then adhere to this property of the world, of what he calls constructors, which is, things that can remain themselves while still transforming matter around themselves to something else, to like structures. And he calls humans universal constructors, because we can potentially construct anything that is physically possible.
Yeah.
So we already reached that level of universal constructors. So in principle, we can actually, So in political systems, it would express itself as in order to achieve a state in which you can absorb a new situation and then act accordingly to keep manifesting yourself as a constructor, yet at the same, because you have to rejuvenate the cells and everything else, but then at the same time keeping all the infrastructure that is required to keep society, which is like the next level up is culture. Culture inculcates in it more informational structures that one individual can't.
Yeah, it's like Maslow's pyramid for society, like having those base levels, and then we can get to higher structures.
Yeah. So when you get to, like, he's saying that it's possible to get to, you never get to a place in which there's no problems arise. Problems are inevitable. That's the law of nature.
Yeah.
But all problems are soluble, and it's also a law of nature, according to him. Both of those tenets. Problems
Soluble
are
is a good way to
yeah. all problems are inevitable. The problems are inevitable. You will never reach a plateau of no problems. It's just what the universe doesn't do that.
It's entropy to an extent.
Yeah. But also all problems are soluble in principle. It doesn't mean you will solve them, but it means that the solution to anything that exists.
Yes.
So to any problem that exists. But you might be too far from it in time or in space. You might not have enough time to figure it out. You're not necessarily going to figure it out, but it's absolutely 100% possible to solve it.
Yeah.
And because of that, the most optimal state for a civilization is to reach a state of equilibrium between how much new states at what rate it accesses, while having the tools to handle new novel situations, and then transform them into something that is sustainable in the same system, integrate it, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's the optimal. It's the optimal bubble of existence.
Yeah.
That
it's
anything
the balance
can
between
that civilization can hope, and it can still be demolished at some point.
Yeah.
But that's the best you can hope for.
It's the balance between structure and entropy.
Exactly. The perfect yin and yang. The reconstructing and deconstructing.
Which is what I always thought was interesting about humans, like and creatures and life. We actually do something that seems to be the opposite of entropy. It's we make structures out of nonsense. You take I don't know.
We resist entropy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel
but life does in general.
Well, yeah, and what's cool is in that vein, if you believe that the universe will theoretically end in heat death, in everything becoming hydrogen, if we advance long enough and fast enough, we actually may extend the length of a universe.
We might, yeah.
By actually counteracting entropy enough.
There's another idea in the book that is actually reiterating an older idea of the omega point civilization, in which it's a hypothetical situation in which if not the heat death happens, but the big crunch, then in that less instance of the almost infinite density, the civilization would be advanced enough to be able to sustain themselves in the crazy heat that
by
occurs,
pushing a gravitational field
however
outward.
they do it,
Going
but
to a
also
wormhole.
use the speed with which things occur to create infinite computation that will put people in simulations. That in those simulations, it will infinitely extend the time periods forever.
Using the power of the heat death itself as like a Dyson sphere collapse to extend their universe.
So for them, the
infinitely.
universe would never
And here
actually
we
end.
are.
And here we are.
Oh my god, that's a genius idea.
That is fucking a genius.
In the collapse of the universe, we absorb and use
Forever.
that energy to create an infinite time inside of a computer for that instance, but for us, it's infinity, and here we are.
Drugs.
Peace out. Oh my gosh.
Lucas, tell us a little bit. I want to end with this. Tell us a little bit about the festival that you guys have been doing, and about the next one that is coming up.
Yes. Okay. So we throw these festivals. It's called Fest. MMMM. Musical Meeting of Mystical Minds, or Mystical Meeting of Magical Musical Minds of Music and Magic. It's in Santa Clarita. We built you and me.
We actually built in the beginning.
We stayed up till 4 a.m. every night and get up at 7 or whatever it was, building a roller disco dance floor stage. And it worked. We built it in like a week.
A week with a ramp that was reconstructed, but still like a half pipe.
And we built
and
a stage. And we did all this in like maybe a week and a half.
Without killing each other.
We almost died, but together. So the next festival is May 14th. You can go to the website, the Skipper Room. It's theskipperroom.earth/fest to see the information. It's also at Festival on Instagram. Also, if you go to our band page at The Things Official, it will be posted there before the festival. And tickets are online. It's a good time. We'll be there.
Lucas, it was such an absolute pleasure, bro. It was amazing.
Thank you for having me, sir. Good work. That's a good time.
That was amazing. I'm very excited to do this again.
Yes, me too. I'd love to come back. Let me know.
Absolutely.
I can drive, but I don't have a license.
I have to come pick you up.
Okay, I'll go get it.